Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside Dave
Hello.
and John.
Ho ho hello.
Oh, I like what you did. I like what you did there. I like the theme that you stuck with there. For anybody who is watching us live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, we are getting to the festive spirit with our Christmas hats, Christmas jerseys. Some of us, I should say, on a nice themed background. For anybody who's listening on the podcast, you will have just heard a nice jingle as part of our intro. That's pretty much all you'll notice different about Christmas themed on the podcast. But we'll try our best to kind of keep it merry and cheery. This is our last podcast of 2023, and we will be taking a short break between after this episode over the festive period. So we won't be back until 2024 in the new year. But it's okay. Don't be too sad about that. Guys, it has been 2 weeks since our last podcast. How have we all been? John, how are you?
I'm good. It's been a quiet couple of weeks, generally speaking. Trying to think, was I in Belfast since the last podcast? Yeah, I think I was.
Yes, you were.
So came across for the wife's birthday, and managed to come along with the little girl to the Sheffield game, which is a game which I've instantly blocked out of my memory because it was terrible. So hoping the new year brings better games that I'm attending and better results.
Yeah, I think you said you were going to be here for a game in January. Oh, 2 games in January, maybe potentially.
It's gonna be one game.
Oh, one game. Okay, one game. We can't be too greedy then. Okay, Dave, how are you? I missed you at the last game. You were, I think you were at your Christmas dinner, so I think that's probably a bit more of a more joyous, a more joyful. Well, no, actually, it was a good game. That last game was okay.
It was a fun night. Sort of work mandated fun, which is eat, drink, and be merry and all that jazz. So it was a good night. Really enjoyed myself, and just getting into the festive spirit for the next few weeks. Enjoy some much needed time off work.
Yeah, this weekend we will be in the SSE Arena at the Belfast Giants doubleheader against the Manchester Storm. And we are correct this time around, even though the Belfast Giants Twitter/X/ news piece on their website had different dates, but this weekend is the Belfast Giants annual Teddy Bear Toss, which will take place on the 16th. In the 16th? I want to say 16th. Yes, 16th. Let's not get that wrong again. So that we are looking forward to that, and that's obviously probably start of our festive period. We will be in our different festive jerseys. I'm sure me and Dave will be matching in our festive jerseys on Friday and Saturday anyway. It's Friday and Saturday? Yeah, it is Friday and Saturday. Guys, we have quite a lot to cover in this podcast. As usual, we'll be covering it in 3 different periods. Period 1, local coverage. Period 2 is our coverage for across the world. And period 3 is just our general anything else that kind of catches our attention from the world of hockey this year, this last 2 weeks. Some of that will be Christmas themed again, be warned. Although, we do like our jerseys, so we will be showing a few more Christmas jerseys and a special Christmas helmet that was designed by one of the goaltenders as well. So we will come to that. But we start off our episode as we always do, and we look at the league standings here in the Elite Ice Hockey League. Starting off in first place, we have the Sheffield Steelers, having played 15 games and having 25 points. The Cardiff Devils are in second with 16 games played, 23 points. The Glasgow Clan are in third with 16 games played, 19 points. I didn't mean to say that so surprisingly, but it did come across like that. In fourth, we have the Coventry Blaze with 15 games played, 17 points. Manchester City in fifth with 16 games played, 17 points. The Giants are in sixth with 17 games played, 17 points. The Dundee Stars are in seventh with 17 games played, 17 points. And Guildford Flames are in eighth with 16 games played and 16 points. Sitting at the bottom, then we have Nottingham in ninth place with 12 games played and 15 points. Obviously, they have a few games to catch up with after their short break. And the Fife Flyers are in 10th place with 18 games played and 14 points. Some interesting comments made by their coach last night in his interview. He was feeling a bit dejected, but we might get to that later on when we were talking about the Challenge Cup. Actually, we probably should talk about the Challenge Cup. Well, no, let's finish the standings first. Let's get your thoughts on the standings, and then we'll talk about the Challenge Cup, guys. So let's look at the standings. So as I mentioned, first, second, and third held by Sheffield, Cardiff, and Glasgow. John, I mean, Sheffield are continuing their form. They were sitting top in our last episode 2 weeks ago, still sitting top there. those top places are kind of changing a wee bit around, but Glasgow sitting in third. Good kind of rebound for Glasgow in this first part of the season.
Yeah, Sheffield showing early form and it's stayed with them. You can't argue with their position. I think looking at it, they've only dropped 5 potential points from all their games, which is just unreal. They are without doubt the form team in the league. Cardiff are an interesting one. They seem to have league form, but like you say, we're going to come on to it. Challenge Cup seems to have been something else for them, maybe a step too far. But they still have their European competition on the go as well, which I know that we're going to talk about later on. Glasgow feel finally like they are fulfilling the promise. I kind of said that in our group chat after last night. They found a vein of form. They had a bit of a ropey end of October, start November, and then coming into December, they have turned things around completely. They are a team on the up, and from a neutral perspective, I'm really glad to see it because Glasgow are the team who have promised everything and delivered nothing up to this point. So I'm really, really glad to see them sort of where they are in the league. I think that is the position. I think we all think that sort of top third, maybe top half, is where we expect Glasgow to be within the league makeup. Up until last year and now this year, they've got ownership who've got money. They've got the capacity to compete with the arena teams, and they just haven't. They haven't delivered on what their budget and what the promise should deliver. Now they're getting there, and it's really exciting to see.
I mean, we've Glasgow over the summer. We know changed ownership. Obviously new hands taking control of the Glasgow clan. And I mean, I think it looks so far like they have started to kind of come true in what they were saying, that they hoped that it would take Glasgow to the next level in terms of kind of getting them competing again compared to maybe the previous season's woes. Dave, do you think that's the case so far?
Yeah, 100% agree. The Glasgow on paper were a team that should always have been really high up. They've a fantastic fan base, really passionate group of fans and loyal group of fans that come week in, week out, and it's I'm sure it's been hard for them to see the sort of the previous seasons where the form was all over the show, where this year they've really nailed it, and it's amazing to see, and I love seeing all the Scottish teams do well. I think it's brilliant for the league when you have that competitiveness the whole way through. I know teams go through spells where it's it's good and bad, but whenever you've got the opportunity on any given night for any given team to maybe steal points, it just makes it so much more interesting to watch, especially when it comes to teams or games you're not invested in. If you're not, if you're a third, if you're not directly linked with the league, or if you're you manage to catch a game that your team's not playing in, just makes it so much more fun. And from an outsider, getting the other fans in, you can't go wrong if there's a more competitive league. Because could you imagine if you turn up to Glasgow last year when they were having a bad run and maybe go 1 or 2 games and you watch them lose both of them, you're maybe not going to run back to it. Where now you might get to see either team win, you might get some of the most competitive hockey you'll see all season. So I think it's great. It's great to see.
We're talking about obviously competitive hockey and making sure the competitive hockey and how people before you mentioned our Dave, how teams kind of do sometimes the form drops and it kind of kind of has a reaction. People have a reaction in different fans coming and going from the league around, coming and going to the games, and it maybe harms footfall and stuff. We have the next 4 teams kind of sitting on the same similar points, just in that mid table. We have the Coventry Blaze, the Manchester Storm, Belfast Giants, and the Dundee Stars all sitting on 17 points each. Some teams struggling more than others, shall we say. I think that's right enough to say. But there was a lot of conversations around, the attendance for like Coventry. I think this past week. I think there was especially I think it was last night. I think was the game it was on, the Giants versus Coventry last night. I think the people were asking, what's happened in Coventry. That the seats looked quite empty last night. I think on their webcast, and I think it was kind of similar up in Dundee. I think it was a similar. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I did see something last night about that. Did I pick that up right, John? Do you?
Yeah, I think it was Andrew Owens commented that the crowd in Coventry was pretty poor, but I think there was a couple of Coventry folk responded on that, given that it was a midweek game. We're not yet into the school holidays, so kids are still going to school the next morning, and I think is it Coventry City Football Club? They've had a bit of a resurgence, and they also happened to be playing last night, so that will obviously have hit the attendances. If you're from Dundee, I think just team performances, unfortunately, are what's impacting the crowds there. What I will say is it's not for lack of trying. The Stars' media output is consistent, it's constant, and they're also on local radio. So obviously I'm in the area that we have TFM. My wife works over in Dundee, so TFM is what we're tuned into. It sounds like an advert for TFM now.
Plug yourself for a job, right?
Maybe. Tell you what, they could do with some new blood, let me tell you. But the ads for the Stars are constant on TFM as well. So they are trying, but that has to be replicated on the ice. The team has to put the effort in, and unfortunately it's just not there. And the same could be said of Fife. I think I'm hearing that crowds are down again after what was a big bumper start to the season. I think the cooling effect has started to cool off. The results just aren't there, and it's a real shame to see Fife, I don't know, like return to type with being down in 10th. Early third of the season, 3 months of the season, they were sitting squarely middle of the table, and they have gone off a cliff. Last night's Challenge Cup game, they had 13 skaters. So whether that's injury, sickness, or whatever's going on, there are just serious problems there in Fife.
I just wanted to highlight this comment that just came up because while John was talking, Dave all of a sudden transformed into this
costume
festive
change.
Yeah, it was a massive costume change for anybody who's not watching the podcast or watching the podcast on YouTube. His wife just came on and just said, "Sorry to disturb." Dave was looking very unfestive. Thanks, Gemma. We did feel he was very unfestive. So thank you for bringing some festivity. Yes. Just you mentioned obviously Fife, and obviously Fife and Nottingham just holding up the table there at the bottom. As we mentioned, Nottingham have only played 12 games compared to everybody else's 15 and 17 games. So they are expected to have maybe just a slightly lower point ratio at this point. Obviously, haven't played less games. Do you think at this time, at the moment, obviously Panthers worried about that, or do you think it's just a case of we'll build up on that, it'll come when it comes?
No, look, to be honest, if they win the games that they have sitting, they're in third place in the league, and I think for the Panthers, regardless of what's happened this season, that would be a league position that they would be very happy with as a club. I think they were struggling. There were real worries they weren't going to make playoffs last year, and ninth is not a reflection of where that club is right now. It really isn't. They've missed a few games. There are games rescheduled for them. They will come up the table. We've seen it in some of the games that we've seen even against the Giants. They are not a ninth place team. They are a top of the table team, or at least a top end of the table team this season. Coach Paredes is doing something right in Nottingham this season.
Yeah. Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. They're sort of at current output, you would be saying definitely top thirds of that table. And yeah, I was very surprised to hear of the numbers dwindling in the likes of Fife and Dundee, when you still see the Giants at the minute, still pulling in almost sellout crowds for what are at the minute absolutely dire games. But it is nice. Hopefully, we can see the form change in the next coming.
Do you think it's a hangover of, and I mean this in the best possible term of hangover, we're still the defending treble champions?
I think so.
So
yeah.
I think to be honest, we could have lost every single game this season so far, and you would still probably be pulling 5,500 fans per game, because there's a massive banner outside that says, "Is it home of champions?" You've got 3 trophies currently in residence in Belfast. I think regardless. Now, as a fan, I don't really care about. I do care about last season, but last season's last season. We lifted those trophies. It's done. I want to see them do it again. The form's just not currently there. I was heartbroken with that performance against Sheffield. I mean, I don't get to that many home games now, and look, I turned up.
It's all your fault.
The Giants. Well, it's a shame the Giants couldn't have turned up.
I mean, let's talk about, obviously we've, as Giants fans, I've kind of skipped past the Giants. We haven't really chatted about them. We chatted about top 3 and the kind of the bottom ones more. The Giants sitting middle of the table is a bit of a surprise, I think, for everyone. I think you both join me in saying that. I think, and Adam Keefe, coach of the Belfast Giants, has said on numerous occasions through his interviews that he's not going to use the excuses of numbers of injuries and stuff. That's not an excuse to use. You can't stand by that. But when you do look at the roster and you do look at the fact that we had 3 key players of the Belfast Giants have just stepped back in onto the ice there this last. Was it Junior Challenge Cup game on Wednesday night? Wednesday night. Yeah, it was Wednesday night.
John, you might be able to say, whenever we counted the last game we had what, 12 outskaters?
I don't think we had 3 full lines. I think we had 3 full lines of forwards, but I don't think we had 3 lines of D.
No. It was very, and I think we were looking at the roster, like the game sheet. There was definitely D men that were on the game sheet that were not on the ice. And it was either last minute injuries or people that couldn't quite pass the medical or whatever,
And we will talk about in period 1. We will talk about some roster changes that have happened, and we will talk about what the Giants' response has been as well, because we know the Giants in our last podcast moved quickly to bring in a player or 2. But even since our last podcast, the Giants have bolstered the roster again to kind of account for some of those major injury players that have been placed on the injury reserve list. So we will talk about that in period 1. I guess just, come back to just what you were saying there, John, about numbers and people in the crowds and stuff. I think there is still a factor of, reigning, triple champions, that's drawing people in and it's bringing crowds in. But we are getting to that point this season anyway where we normally do have higher crowds coming in through the SSE arena, just because it does happen around Christmas time and around this festive period running in January, winning or not usually. But I definitely think there's an aspect of that, but I think there's also an aspect of there's been a lot of I don't know if it's just me on different social media platforms, but I've seen a lot of output from so-called bloggers, or what do you call them?
Influencers.
Influencers. Sorry, yeah. I mean, I've seen loads of content from influencers being like, "Oh, come to the Giants game with me," blah blah blah. And there's been, a lot of that. So I don't know.
There's been some of that. I wouldn't necessarily call them influencers.
I don't know if it's. I don't know if it's maybe just algorithms based on, but I don't know if it's just algorithms based on where you are. Because here in Belfast, I feel like I'm inundated with that type of stuff.
That sort of content used to be in the realm of influencers, but the advent of TikTok, for example, puts that sort of editing ability to cut together a video of a game night and things like the walk up to the arena and everything. It puts it in your pocket. It puts it in your phone, so people can make that stuff and put it out very quickly, and it looks like what we would consider maybe 5-6 years ago a fairly pro looking vlog, and now everyone's doing it. Like we need to step up and do the next thing and find out what it is. Says me, the TikToker of the group.
But what I mean by that is, I think there is a TikTok factor going on at the moment, in that I think these creative people who are putting these videos out, who are putting on come along with me for this game night experience, other people are saying,
Oh, it's not. It's not even that.
That looks like a lot of fun. I'm going to go and do that too.
It's not even specifically that. You've got Jackie Gendron, who is huge on TikTok, and she has been drawing a fair crowd. I think she did. Did she do bracelets or something making on the bridge a few weeks ago? So drawing on the popularity, and that's been a massive thing. I've talked about it on the podcast before. There are a number of the wives and girlfriends who are producing content on TikTok specifically and are drawing people in. So Jackie Gendron, I know, is one, and Low Car here in Dundee is another one. She, effectively, she's almost as famous as Kevin in Dundee. She's been travelling around the city, she's been going to bakeries and coffee shops and going shopping in places and she's interacting with fans who are telling her these places to go. She's doing game night videos as well about what it's like to be on the sideline supporting your partner. And the same thing is happening. I don't think Jackie Gendron is the only one in Belfast. I think there's a couple of them who are doing that as well. And that's all content. That's all pushing out, and it's free advertisement for the clubs. It's free advertisement for the league, which makes it even harder when I can't get any response from the Elite League teams for interviews for 14 with 14.
Oh, better. You can talk about that at the end. You can do your. I'll let you get on a soapbox at the end of the podcast and give a shout out. But we'll move on for now. Guys, let's have a quick look just at this past week. Midweek games. We're all Challenge Cup games. We had two. I want to say we had two games that were round one games, and then we had two games that were round two, second leg games.
Well, do you want me? I have the complete thing here. Do you want me to run through sort of where things are?
Yes. Where you go.
So I can run through. So two of the matches have only seen one leg so far. So Manchester and Sheffield have only played one leg so far, and they sit with an aggregate score of 5-1 to Sheffield, with the return leg in Sheffield still to go. The other one that was played last night, Belfast Coventry, a completely pointless 60 minutes of hockey ended with a 1-1 tie, and that tie will come back to Belfast next Wednesday, where it will be decided who will step up into the semi-finals. The two that we know the results from in the quarterfinals are Guildford and Fife. They have completed with Guildford Flames moving forward with an aggregate score of 6-3. The return leg of that was played in the Guildford Spectrum last night, with the Flames taking the spot in the semi-finals. And Glasgow and Cardiff, the shock result so far of the Challenge Cup. Glasgow with a 3-1 win on the night down in Cardiff Bay, taking a 6-5 win on aggregate. So the Cardiff Devils crashing out of the Challenge Cup.
That's a massive one. I think whenever I was seeing the scores last night, when I was looking at the scores on Wednesday night last night, if you're watching live, that definitely took me, and I think I put into the group. I was like, I didn't see that coming. That was a surprise knockout. And we talked about, I think Aaron actually had mentioned it in our last podcast. He was like, what he likes about Challenge Cup sometimes is you do see these surprises every now and again where one of the big teams gets scalped and gets taken out, a la last year with Fife Flyers and the Sheffield Steelers. It's almost like, I think it wasn't. I don't think it was a case of Cardiff going into the game thinking, oh well, we've got this, but there's definitely an aspect of I think a lot of fans' response were, I don't think they were expecting Glasgow to do that, what they did last night.
No,
so fair play to Glasgow for moving forward.
Cardiff were going into that tie. They brought it back home with a 1-goal lead. It was theirs to win. Now, we've seen the Giants fall foul of that aggregate game line before. The horrendous year where we went to Nottingham with a lead and then crashed out by getting absolutely hammered by the Panthers in the NIC. But I think Paul Dixon, no, not Paul Dixon, what do you call their coach? Pete Russell. Pete Russell kind of said it in his post-game interview that the team just weren't at the races. They looked leggy. They started slow. They went down very early in the game. Glasgow, two goals in the first. It's very difficult to come back from that. That's Glasgow with the lead straight off the bat in the first period. And by the lead, I mean the lead in that game and the aggregate lead. So you've got the Devils team. Now, albeit at home, they should be winning that, but they're chasing the game from early on. and that's not a position you want to be in. Cardiff are sputtering at the minute, which is probably not great for their fans, considering the Conti Cup is coming back to Cardiff Bay.
Is the focus on the Conti Cup? I should have waited and kept that question until when we're talking about it later on. But do you feel that at this time the focus is on the fact that they are in the final for the Conti Cup?
If it is, that's a completely misplaced focus. The Conti Cup is what it is. You compete for a weekend in the finals, and you either win or you don't. Yes, it's in Cardiff, so should be a focus on it, but it's just a game weekend. They need to come at it with an attitude of, we've got games to play.
Dave, would you go for a Conti Cup or Challenge Cup?
Jeez. The benefit of the Continental Cup is that you have it's not an automatic anymore, but you go into the running for one of the CHL spots. So whenever they're drawing up the Magic list, there is a possibility that you could be picked. So that would be nice. Challenge Cup's a domestic cup, and if you've gone a few seasons without anything domestic, you want it, and it should be your focus, in my opinion.
Yeah. Guys, let's move on. Let's move our attention across the water, because we do have a lot to pick up on in our periods. So let's switch our attention across the water to the NHL and currently the standings and the wild card spots, as we will. And we'll look at the Eastern Conference first in the Atlantic Division. So sitting top there is Boston Bruins, still with 27 games played and 40 points. The Florida Panthers sit in second with 28 games played and 36 points. And the Toronto Maple Leafs have moved up into third with 26 games played and 35 points. In the Metropolitan Division, then we have the New York Rangers sitting top with 27 games played, 39 points. The New York Islanders with 28 games played and 35 points. And the Philadelphia Flyers are sitting in third still with 28 games played and 33 points. The two wildcard spots are held by Detroit and Washington. I always find it really funny when you look at the wildcard spots and you realize that although they're in two different divisions, the Detroit Red Wings actually have more points than the Philadelphia Flyers, and I just always think it's really funny when you see that happening, but that's how it is so far. If we switch across into country to the western side of things, in the Central Division, the Colorado Avalanche are sitting top with 29 games played and 38 points. Winnipeg Jets are in second with 28 games played and 36 points, and the Dallas Stars are in third with 27 games played, 35 points. Pacific Division, last division, is the Vegas Golden Knights in first with 30 games played, 45 points, continuing their form from last year. The Vancouver Canucks are in second with 29 games played, 39 points, and the LA Kings are in third, 26 games played and 36 points. The wildcard spots are held by Nashville Predators and the Arizona Coyotes. Yeah, John, happy with that?
Happy with that, considering the start that we had. We're blowing a little bit hot and cold at the minute. We're getting a couple of streaking 2 or 3 wins together and then taking an L, and then getting back to 2 or 3 wins again. But I'm quite happy. Churn through Christmas, stick close to one of the wild card spots, potentially move up into third, second place. But if we can get through Christmas, get through January, still sitting in that wild card spot, we've seen it before. The West is a bloodbath, so I'd be quite happy to take the wild card if we can take that going through into playoffs.
Yeah, everything picks up pace from when we come back after the festive period. Everything will just start picking up pace. You know, January, February feels like just flies through with games, the amount of games on the sheets for both those months. And it just seems like once we hit that stage, everything starts to you start to see things shake out, get a really good understanding, an idea of who's maybe going to end where. But as we always talk about, both you guys, both in the Western Conference, that conference and that wild card spots, they're always quite tough and they're always shaking up and down. So that's always the one that we keep an eye on right through the season. I think that's really it. Are we happy to move on to period one? As I say, we've got quite a bit in period one to get through. So if we're happy enough, what we'll do is we'll get stuck into our show and we'll move on to period one of hockey. As I mentioned at the top of our show, period one of hockey is just a roundup of stories and items from around the UK. I'm going to start us off, first off, just with a quick run through and a quick look at just some of the roster updates. since our last podcast, which was the 30th of November. So last 14 days, a bit of change, a bit of movement. So I'm just going to go through some of the changes that have happened across the league, just in relation to players moving up and down, and asking for the Johnson of those story there as well. But coming in for Nottingham Conference, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Starting off way back after our last podcast, the Five Flyers added non-homegrown player Pavlos as an injury cover for Ben Horachuk. Doesn't count this change to the Flyers overall roster size, 29. Belfast Giants added homegrown player Cameron Pound, and that was added on the 23rd of November as an IR cover for Mark Garside, and doesn't count as a change towards the Giants overall roster of 29 players. In December, the Panthers then added non-homegrown player Austin Farley to their roster, didn't count towards the Panthers overall roster size. And then the Belfast Giants, as we mentioned and we kind of alluded to in our intro there, the Giants added non-homegrown player, returning player, shall we say, for the Belfast Giants, Henrik Eriksson, as injury cover for Oliver Cooper, who was added to the injury reserve list on the 23rd of November. And again, doesn't count as a change towards the Giants' roster size of 29 players. We'll talk about Henrik Eriksson in a second, guys, if that's okay. I'm going to keep going. In the 8th of December, then, Sheffield Steelers placed Sam Jones on injury reserve, ineligible to ice for 28 days following the deal of the 4th of the 12th. And then most recently, as of this week, the Glasgow Clan reactivated Charlie Combs and added non-homegrown player Reid Petrick to their roster, previously an IR replacement. The Clan have 3 non-homegrown roster places remaining on an overall roster size of 29 players or 23 players so far this season. There is a few changes which we'll talk about. But let's go to Henrik Eriksson first and foremost for the Belfast Giants fans here between us. Henrik returns to the Belfast Giants, shall we say, after the treble winning season last year. I know he had a number of I suppose it was I think he was dealing with a bit of an illness and a bit of I suppose he missed out on the playoff run at the end of the season last year due to illness and stuff. But he returns to the Giants and seems to have made a bit of an impact in the first few games he's had back. Your thoughts on that, John?
Scored in his first game back, so pleased to have him. It's certainly been an area that the Giants have struggled in. We've been losing. Yes, we've lost a couple of games with multiple points, but we're out shooting opponents. We are outplaying opponents. Puck possession is way above the opponents. Even looking at the game against Sheffield in Belfast, we were on the ice the more dominant team. I know that some people have commented about Sheffield potentially out-muscling Belfast in every area of the ice. I don't think that's true. What has been a problem has been the quality chances. We've been a perimeter team again. There's been nobody willing to go into the dirty area. Special teams are god-awful at the minute. And that has actually, I think, been my one complaint over the last, if you want to call it, the last coaching era. Far be it for anyone to criticise the Adam Keefe era. But I think our power play over that time has been not fantastic. Now, somebody will probably throw stats in my face, but I feel like the frustration I've constantly had for the last few seasons has been a lack of point production on the power play. And that has certainly continued this season. So, short answer, glad to see him back.
Dave, I mean, the response on social media for the return of Eriksson was positive overall, generally saying, but it was also like, do you feel it was I suppose, as I said, it's positive. It was a positive response. My feeling was it was a bit overboard with the positivity in terms of, I mean, a good decent player. The one thing we can't deny is that one of the big complaints people were having, the fan base, and at the moment it can be a bit of a toxic place online, especially from a fan base that, you can say you're passionate and stuff, but there's also a level of, let's keep it real as well. But I mean, I think the one thing I will say is a lot of players and a lot of fans are talking about whether or not players at the moment playing in the Belfast Giants have the heart and really want to play for the team and really want to be on the ice. The one thing we can't deny about Eriksson is that he wants to be here. He's playing for the Belfast Giants.
You could tell from the coming in last season that he has, from an outsider looking in, looks like he's having a fantastic time playing for the Giants. If nothing else, he's enjoying himself. As a player, I think he's good. I sort of, yes, we do have a bit of a issue with getting the goals. He wasn't the sort of player I would have been looking for, but he probably is a fairly comparative replacement for Oliver Cooper. If that's what they were going for. So that's that's good. It's good to see him, and he will put in points. I would have liked to probably see a D-man, a big D-man. Someone who's going to be able to sort of command in a period. I think that's where our personal weaknesses are. Yes, I do agree with John. We're missing somebody who's going to get down and dirty and get those sort of dirty goals. But we are missing a big chunk of our day. So whenever we do make mistakes, the guys are tired and aren't able to get back, and we end up with these breakaways, which we wouldn't have had last year, leading to us being outworked. And that's why we're getting those like quick succession goals. So you'll get one, and then you'll get another one when the Giants are trying to pull it back, and that's purely down to the D not being able to get back in place. What I would say though, just on a positive note, I was talking to John about this game. I've really enjoyed Davy Phillips' play this year. I think he's been a phenomenal asset to the team, and showing elements of the same player that went to the AHL, but with veteran knowledge and leadership. So it'd be nice to see another big stay-at-home D-man turn up to the Giants. I don't know whether we will, with everything that's currently going wrong, or with the current injuries stacking up. But we will wait with bated breath.
That was so. Two things. The first thing was I 100% agree with nearly everything you said there, Dave. In terms of, I think my response was a D-man was kind of where I thought we would need to be, and I had this conversation actually with a few guys at the game on this past weekend, and we were talking about Henrik coming into the lineup, and we were talking about what we were expecting in terms of what we kind of thought the Giants were going to bring in, and one of the things that I said was the conversation that was had was whether or not the Giants needed people to score, and as I kind of said, and I kind of said to you, and I think John, you kind of alluded to this as well. It's not that the Giants don't have the talent to score goals. It's not that they don't have it. For some reason, they're just not producing those goals. They're trying. They're just not producing. They're just not finishing in the way they need to. So we have the firepower there, and we know they have the capability and the firepower there. But the problem that we keep seeing is that when we go up, exactly as you said, Dave, when we go up a goal, almost instantaneously afterwards, almost like a click of a finger, there's a response from the opposition team, and all of a sudden they're scoring on a breakaway play, or just minutes after. It feels like minutes after we score, the opposition team scores straight away again after. And again, is it a question of we were looking through the injury reserve list, and we were looking through the players that were currently off the ice, and quite a few of those were defensemen. Now we have the Giants obviously announced that they brought back Jackson Whistle's back, and he's been brought back into the team, which is great. Maybe he's a backup for Besko and giving Besko a bit of a rest. Hopefully that will come because we've heard things that Besko might be a bit injured and whatever else, maybe not, but obviously give him a bit of a rest. But we also see Bomber's back, which is great as well for the defensive line, because when he's on the ice, when he's back on the team, we know we've got a good strong defenseman there, and it's really relieving to have him in there, and it's just a bit of confidence knowing he's there. We know Miles Gendron is currently out of commission, but he's due back soon. We've had Roach, who's been out since the start of the year as a defenseman, and there was no talk of that, and whether or not there's going to be any return soon of that, and again, so we're talking about defensemen, and I suppose I was surprised about you. So that leads me to my last question before we move on to our next story. In terms of the Christmas period, the Giants are very well known to bring in additional names and players towards Christmas time periods. So it's almost like a little Christmas gift post-Christmas. We've seen that in previous years. Do we think the Giants will move towards bringing another player in before the end of the festive period, John?
Scott Conway clause activated.
If they
I've been
announce that
sa-
on Christmas Day or Boxing Day, I think that's
I've
that
been
would
joking
be
with Marty all season that it's just for the movie. The two went away. The Conway and Goodwin have just went away for a wee break, in the sun, and then they'll come back in the new year and we'll win everything. Just for the movie. It's just for the movie rights, you know.
just for the movie. That's it. Guys, I'm going to move us on. We're talking about signings. There was an announcement this week that the Nottingham Panthers have a new signing via Manchester Storm. John, your story, do you want to head off with that one?
Yeah, so this was the news that Joe Hazeldine has departed his Erstliga team. Now, the Manchester Storm retained the rights to his Elite League contract when he departed for the Erstliga. However, on his return, it was made clear by the player to Manchester that he would not be returning for the Storm. He wants to be closer to family, who are obviously either in Nottingham or in the Nottingham area. And therefore, an approach by the Panthers was made. An agreement was made on some sort of purchase rights. So obviously the Storm will have taken some cash off the back of this, and instead Hazeldine will be and has signed with the Nottingham Panthers instead. So interesting. This to me is not an interesting story given the moves or anything, because totally the Panthers could have just announced that they'd signed him. What is refreshing to me out of this story is that we are getting a little bit of an insight into backroom discussions between clubs on signings, and the fact that Manchester are being clear with their fans, with the fans of the league, that look, we had the right to sign him, but we've done the right thing by the player. But here's what's also happened. The Panthers have come looking for him as well. So we've got something for this, and this is putting their fans at ease with this, is we've got something for this. We'll be looking for someone else, or at least we've got this cash, and we're going to do something with that. And that to me is great. And also it's great to see Hazeldine back in the IHL.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the biggest thing, as you say, it wasn't the announcement of where the player was going to. That wasn't the thing that caught my attention. As you clearly said there, it's what is interesting is that we always kind of knew, and there'd always been chat about the fact that when players signed for the Elite League teams, and whenever there comes to a point where maybe they're departing from the Elite League teams for whatever reason that might be, there was always this chat that there was almost like tied into some of the contracts, or that we're going to release the player under the understanding is that if they return to the Elite League in a say a year's time, whatever it might be, that they're going to return to us. So we're happy to free you from a contract with us to go and have an opportunity somewhere in Europe in a different league. But on the other side of it, if you do decide you want to come back to the league, you give us the first option, the first choice to come back to us. And so obviously they kind of hold on to that contract. We've kind of seen that in the past. We kind of heard that was happening, but we've never really ever really seen it in writing and written down form like this. So the fact that Manchester put out the statement to say, yeah, we did, we had the contract for him, we owned the contract, but we've given up for Nottingham, and we've come to terms with Nottingham on an option. It was a very interesting statement that was put out, and I think that's why it caught our attention for definite.
I would love to see a move to a more transparent setup like that. I know that a lot of our deals are done in the back rooms of what previously would have been very smoky bars, but I just think it's very shady whenever the whole sort of player recruitment and process and stuff, where if I know that the NHL is a different animal, but it's so transparent. It does mean that you sort of know what your team's currently playing with, and I know that it's harder to put in place, and what it does do is stop people running away with it. And I know that people blame the Giants for doing exactly that, and having that level of transparency would stop that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to stick with Manchester for the minute before we move on to our next story. I'm going to stick with Manchester because this is a story that kind of also came out, and this was the most frustrating thing. This tends to happen a lot. This is why I said to John today before we went on to this podcast, before we went on to record the podcast, just keep an eye on Twitter for us throughout the podcast. If any breaking news happens, just kind of let us know. This seems to happen quite a bit, but as we finished our last podcast just over 2 weeks ago, there was breaking news at the time of podcast recording, which we didn't see, and this was the news that there was a change of ownership for the Manchester Storm. Now we kind of knew. In last week's podcast, when we were doing this podcast 2 weeks ago, we did know that this was a rumor at the time. So this was something that was
wasn't even a rumor. The existing owners at that point had gone into liquidation. That was public knowledge.
So let's put it into context. The reason why we didn't report on the story 2 weeks ago in the podcast is because the only thing that was put out was the previous owner put out a post on Twitter to basically say, stepping down, blah blah blah. This is what's I thank everybody for the support, blah blah blah, for the last 6 years, that sort of thing. That was the tweet he put out. We had seen things about liquidation and everything else, but at the time there was no official story put out. And the one thing we have always talked about and we'd always agreed on in this podcast was that we'll only report on a story and talk about a story if and when it becomes official news and something is put out, or statement is put out there. The statement for this changeover of ownership happened just as we were on air and we missed it. So this was obviously the ownership. So I'm just going to take us back 2 weeks just to kind of have a quick chat about it. But the Manchester Storm did announce that the change of ownership structure as of the 30th of November 2023. After 6 years, Jamie Tunstall expressed his desire to step down from the directorship on the conclusion of the 2022-2023 season, setting the focus on family and his primary motivations. As a result, Frontiera Limited, which is a new business led by Emma and Ryan Finnerty, very familiar names, emerged as the majority stakeholders. Frontiera have also collaborated with a minority partner, Springwood Sports Investments, which is a Canadian-based sport investment organization led by Gord Simmons. Gord's industry experience includes 11 years as the majority owner of the Ontario Hockey League's Belleville Bulls, 4 seasons as a minority owner of the Hamilton Bulldogs, and he sat on the Ontario Hockey League's Board of Governors for 15 years and the OHL's Executive Committee for 6 years. So really good standings, really good pedigree in terms of ownership and in terms of knowledge and understanding of the game from different variations and different levels of the sport. John, let's come to you first. I mean, we know Ryan Finnerty has a massive love for the Manchester Storm and Manchester in general. I mean, having an ownership from that point of view in terms of having owners who love the team that they're taking ownership of. It can't be a bad thing at all in the long run.
Look, it's great to. I mean, you say it's great. Once again, we've seen the old boys club of the IHL keep things to themselves, so it's stayed within the same group. But let's not beat around the bush with this. The manner in which this was done. This was not a purchase of a business. This was the creation of a new business to allow the liquidation of an old business with substantial debts. Now, the records are public knowledge. You can go into the previous business and you can look at their debts, and they have, by going through this process, have screwed over quite a number of debtors. There are people who are owed money who are now not going to get it. One of them, I believe, includes their previous title sponsor.
Ooh.
So that in itself is fairly poor. It is good in one respect to see that the Manchester Storm will continue. I know Anthony from Banners, he did comment a couple of times saying when's a storm not a storm, when it's a phoenix. Yeah, absolutely, Anthony, totally agree. I think we were very, very close to seeing something similar to what happened to the Phoenix again. But the brand continues, the Storm continue, and at least we're not down to a 9-team league again. That's the key thing for me here, is that we're still a 10-team league.
Yeah.
Marty remembers the days when we almost were a 16 league.
Do you remember that chant? I think it was playoffs that year. It was 16 league. You're having a laugh. That chant rang around the arena the whole weekend. Yeah, I do remember that. Dave, the question I was going to ask was, obviously, with new ownership comes new opportunities for, obviously taking into consideration what John was saying. Obviously, I know there's a number of factors still going on in the background with that, in terms of finance and everything else. But with new ownership comes new opportunities, comes new possibilities, I suppose, for a team and for a franchise. We obviously seen rumors and heard of rumors of new ice happening in Manchester. Do you think that there'd be a decision made or a conversation had at some stage around moving from Altrincham to Manchester? And is it likely that this group who've taken over in Manchester will maybe try and follow through and maybe something around that lines?
It'll be interesting to see. Manchester's always a funny one for me because Manchester's a massive sporting area. It should be able to pull in fairly substantial numbers. We seen it. Manchester Storm held the record for a very long time for the largest ice hockey game in the UK when they played out of the MEN Arena. So they have pedigree of playing in the centre, and it all comes down to that old adage where the best kept secret, John, as we keep talking about it, and it's almost as if by keeping them secret, it's causing issues there. I for one would love to see Manchester playing in the centre of Manchester. I think it would be fantastic. But the same goes for a lot of our teams. A UK-based league without a London proper team, just it baffles my brain. Belfast's doing great. Cardiff seem to manage to make it work in a fairly central location. It may be just out in the bay. The Edinburgh Caps couldn't make it work, but they're on a resurgence. But I would love to see something in London. But you would think a market like Manchester could support a larger team than the Storm as they currently stand. And I would love to see them move in. Maybe with the addition of some new blood in that minority group with so much hockey pedigree and knowledge from around the world, might inject some sort of leadership there that will move them into pastures new.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. What we do know is that it will be an interesting future for Manchester Storm, and definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on to see what does happen. Maybe it won't happen this season because we're obviously in the middle of the season, and the ownership only really happened. The ownership change only happened there in the previous month and previous 2 weeks. So I think it will be probably 2024-2025 season next season before we really see much changes. So that'll probably come over the off season this year. So we'll come back to this story definitely.
See, as long as we don't end up with the cringeworthy new owners videos like we had out at Cardiff, then I'm totally pleased. Just be quiet, owners, guys. Just get on with stuff in the background. We don't need your summer collective meeting being broadcast all over social media. It's just absolute nonsense.
It is a bit cringe.
Thank Christ the Giants don't do the Odyssey Trust Board meetings.
And the question will be, will there be a brand change? But let's not get into that because we know how that went down this year. Let's move on. Let's switch our attention. John, I'm going to come back to you. We're going to switch our attention to another brand change, which has been announced this week, or as of today, shall we say. But the brand change came with a brand new name for the EIHA, but also some new branding and a new kind of focus for them in the terms of the future.
Yep, so this is the news that the EIHA is no more, and in its place we have England Ice Hockey that has taken its place. So the governing body for the game in England is going through a transformational change, effectively. They have set up a brand new brand identity, which will include all of the junior sections across the game will have their own brand identity, from the under-10s right up to the under-18s. The same goes for the women's game, for the 5 sections within the women's and girls' game as well. Now, they do stress that this is not just something that's about a new logo and a new name. They are setting out, as part of their new strategy, 4 strategic pillars that they believe will underpin this new organisation. Participation, progression, performance, and partnership. So they want to see those moving forward. Now, let's be totally honest, guys. We are not the experts in the EIHA. We are certainly not the experts in the EIH, given that it is an organisation that is only a number of hours old at this point, because this was just announced today. However, what I will say, and I want to give him a shout here, is that tomorrow night, Friday night, over on Banners on the Wall, on the What's Current stream, Anthony will have the independent non-executive director who has been leading on this rebrand and governance overhaul for EIH. Daniel Smith is going to be on the What's Current stream. That is a fantastic pull from Anthony to get this guy in within 24, 36 hours of this brand renewal for EIH. So that will certainly be worth a watch. And if I get the chance, if the wee one goes down, I will be giving that a watch, because that could be quite interesting. There are a lot of comments that there are bigger fish to fry within what was the EIHA, and is now the right time to do this, and is now the right time to be spending money on this. Considering there are substantial problems with rinks right across that league, the relationship with Planet Ice, the issues about the level of spend on their online platform for statistics and game night stats. I believe they spent money on something called Sportle, and that's never really come to anything. They spent quite a lot of money on it, and it hasn't come to anything. But this is the side that they've gone. They've gone for the rebrand, and we await to see all the massive changes that will come out of EIH.
Yeah, as you say, I think you said it right. Obviously this is going to be stories that are going to be covered by a few places better than what we'll ever do it justice. And I will. Well, I'm not going to lie, I won't see it live tomorrow because I'll be at a Belfast Giants game in the SSE Arena. But I will be watching it back tomorrow evening when I get home. So I will be interested to see what that conversation looks like and how that interview goes. The one thing I did want to just have a quick mention about was if you can just mention, or you can just ask maybe, Anthony. I don't know if this is a question you can ask, but what was the idea behind the logo? Did they go out and ask local primary schools if they could come up with an art competition to design the logo, or was it just a laziness factor and just someone picked when were they still using Windows, like using Office like 97 or something like that, because it looks like something
Here,
from the
see
early noughties clip art.
See that logo? You could almost definitely say that was the same guys who did Cardiff's.
Well, no, let's give Cardiff a bit of credit. The Cardiff one at least looks like it's been someone's actually went in and actually designed something and drawn something. This one literally just looks like someone went click file, insert clip art. Oh, look, there's a little person playing hockey. Add. That's genuinely that's what it looks like.
Hey, look. When was the last time you saw any of the EIHL logos animated as a GIF? I haven't seen it.
Okay, fair enough.
The one thing I will say is people have been commenting on it and saying that guy needs to get his back hand up higher on that stick because that's in the wrong place.
Oh, very good. I'm going to stick with the with the NIHL. I'm going to stick with the EIHA is now the EIH, and it's just a story that is. Has been announced today, it was put out today, was the ice hockey teams across the NIHL different divisions have started to receive bleed control kits as part of a program that was being run after the result of obviously Adam's tragic passing in October. The Hull Ice Hockey Club were the first team. The Seahawks are among 100 UK teams to receive a bleed control kit. And this is part of a NHL team. The Raiders NHL team mobilised what they call Adam's Angels, which the aim was to raise money for enough bleed control kits for all 106 of the UK's, it says here, Elite Ice Hockey League and British National League teams. Partnering with a company called Turtle, which is a company that developed UK's bleed control cabinets and batches of life-saving kits. And they have started to go out and ship out through NIHL South and North Divisions 1 and 2 teams. So I know a bunch of the teams have started to get them as of today, or this week anyway. So this is a really, really great response, shall we say, coming out of what was an awful tragedy. But I suppose having these kits having something there that is something they can run to, something they can have at hand, something that is just really easy to get a hold of straight away. It's a bit like, if you need if you needed a defibrillator, it's almost the same level of that. So having that safety and having that knowledge that you have a kit that's sitting there, if touch wood it doesn't happen again, but if God forbid something did happen to the same level, the same happened, that they'll have something that they can use. Guys, I mean, this is great news. Obviously this is a massive bit of thing that's came together between, obviously campaigning that went together, raising funds for this. This Adam's Angels, obviously leading on this. Fantastic thing to see.
Well, let's give a shout out to the person who's actually organised all this, Erin Rose, who's a sports therapist with the Raiders. She has pushed this and gone through the partnership with Turtle, the company that have developed the bleed kits, about putting them out there, about raising the funds to do this. So stick taps to Erin, because we hope that if they are going to put out, 106 of these kits, I honestly hope that none of them are ever used. But if one of them is used and prevents a serious incident from becoming worse, then it'll be worth it entirely.
I think this is fantastic.
Yeah, massive stick taps, and the more steps that could be taken in light of what happened, the better.
One thing I would say that I always find a bit strange is why a charity needs to step in here. Surely the leagues themselves should be throwing their weight behind elements like this, and almost mandating it with, like, if it's providing money to the charity, or making them the official partner to provide these kits, because these are semi-professional leagues in some cases, and if it does come to the elite league, professional leagues. So you would hope that the teams or the league would put their hands in their pockets for this charity.
That's a fair enough comment. Actually, I would agree with you. The one thing I will mention before we move off this story is just that the one thing that they did mention was that packs will reach all remaining teams before Christmas, and £5 for each kit is going to the Daniel Bird Foundation, and that charity is set up following the death of Daniel Bird, who was 26, who was fatally stabbed in Birmingham on a night out with friends in 2017. There was no first aiders, no bleed control kits available, and Daniel died shortly after arriving in hospital due to bleeding. So there has been funds going to that organisation as well. So it's twofold in terms of Adam's Angels doing something for the local teams and hockey teams, providing the kits, but also an additional £5 then going to an additional charity as well. So it's great to see coming up to the Christmas period. Can I just throw in? Can I throw in one? I'm not sure if we talked about it on the last podcast or not. I don't think we did, because I think since then, and it's a story that I meant to throw in the running order and it's not there, is the news that came out of the IHF that they will be mandating for neck guards from next season. So that sort of going forward, that is a major change. I think a lot of people have been waiting for the IHF to make that decision. That came through their board of governors. So that is happening. That will be happening as well. So a lot of people now looking at the NHL now as being the next stepping stone from that. With the IHF mandating it, that'll mean that the Olympics are covered. So that will mandate it for the Olympics. So eyes are on the NHL now. Obviously, we talked in the last podcast about the conversations being had with the Commissioner, with the Players Association, but the IHF have stepped up and they will be mandating it. Yeah, that's true. Moving on to our next story and the second last story for this period, and we touched upon this already. But the Continental Cup final will take place January 12th to the 14th, and it will be held at Cardiff's Arena. In Cardiff, the Cardiff Devils are part of that final, as we know. The teams will be the Cardiff Devils, Nomad Astana, Herring Blue Fox, and GKS Katowice. The ticket prices have also been released for that tournament weekend. The pass covers all 6 games. The tournament pass for all 6 games for an adult is £50, and for a junior, which is 15 years and under, it's £30. Individual games are £20 for an adult and £10 for juniors. And for non-Devils games, it is £10 for an adult and £6 £100 for juniors. The schedule is out there, so if you did want to have a look at the schedule, go over to the Cardiff Devils website and you'll see the schedule, both covering Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I think it's a Friday 4 p.m. face-off, Friday 8 p.m. face-off, Saturday 3 p.m. face-off, and a 7 p.m. face-off, and the Sunday we'll see a 3 p.m. and a 7 p.m. face-off. It's good coup for Cardiff.
Brilliant. I was just looking at it there. They've, if I'm reading it right, they've only allotted half a block for the Blue Foxes and the Nomads.
Yep, they're in the same block.
They're in the same block.
I think, to be fair, I think they're not expecting massive crowds coming from there, but
you'd be surprised.
More interesting. Well, look, I hope they come. Yeah. We know from experience that the Katowice fans will come in force.
They need more than one of those.
But the interesting one, I don't know what the seeding is going into this final. I would have thought that, given their history, that Katowice would have been well on there as favourites, probably behind Cardiff. But the fact that Cardiff play Katowice on the Saturday and instead they play Herning on the Sunday, I thought they would have gone the other way. But like I say, I haven't been keeping track because, look, the Giants aren't playing in it. I don't really care. And if I'm being totally honest, while it would be nice to see another UK team lift the dinner plate of destiny, I honestly, I hope they get beaten all 3 games.
Do we think £50 for a tournament pass for 6 games for an adult is good value?
I think it's not bad considering the cost of operating for the weekend for the arena. Knowing that they're not going to fill that arena for every single game, they are going to be operating at a loss for multiple of those games, especially the ones where the Devils are not playing. I think £50 is not far off. Can you remember what it was for the Conti Cup final weekend in Belfast? I don't think it would have been far off that. It must have been 35, 40 quid back then. Put inflation in amongst that. It's not far off, really.
No, I think it's a half decent price. I actually think it was, whenever the price came through, I kind of thought, yeah, actually, you know what? It is a half decent price. And fair play for getting the final there. Dave, your thoughts? Anything else on that?
Yeah, well, I obviously do love the Continental Cup. It's one of my favourite tournaments, and would have been lovely if it was the Giants, but obviously we had the CHL, which went really well. But yeah, all power to them. I hope they have loads of fun.
From one finals weekend to another, the playoff finals weekend for the Elite Ice Hockey League has also been announced. Tickets have went on sale for that already prior to Christmas, which I kind of thought was a surprising move. I thought it was a bit weird to put it out before Christmas, but hey ho. Ticketing basically has went on sale from the 4th of December. It will see the return of format as usual. So the Saturday, 2 semi-final games, followed by a 3rd and 4th place playoff game, and the final on the Sunday. And the dates have been set for that as the oh my god, I've forgotten the dates. Completely right out of my head. The
20th
Saturday,
and 21st of April.
20th and 21st of April, that's it. The ticket prices have pretty much stayed the same this year as they were last year. I think they're locked in place at the same point. So the early bird price for an adult for the full weekend package is £99, and the concession price was £79. The family ticket is there again this year for 2 adults, 2 concessions for £338 for early bird prices. Those early bird prices will change to standard prices come the 25th of January 2024, where it will increase to £109 for an adult, £89 for concession, and the adults or the family will jump up from £338 to £368. There is obviously a facility fee and all that kind of thing. Same again as usual. Most teams will be able to buy the tickets, or can buy the tickets direct from Nottingham themselves, and a few of the one team can purchase from their own team themselves. The Sheffield Steelers are going to be sold directly from the Steelers, and therefore not on general sale for those Sheffield Steelers blocks. And I believe the Sheffield Steelers have added on, I think, maybe like a £5 or £10 charge, I think, maybe on top of those prices, I think. So just be aware of that if you are buying from the Sheffield Steelers. Boys, the playoff weekend, we were there previous weekend. It was fantastic. Great weekend, obviously, because the Giants won the weekend, but not just that. We just had a brilliant weekend, just meeting up with all the fans, doing the podcast, doing little bits and stuff for the podcast for the first time. John, obviously, for you, being press, getting on the ice and having that experience. I mean, it was a great weekend. Yes, we see it.
Press pass.
It was a great weekend in general.
It's a fantastic weekend of hockey. It's the highlight. And look, we can argue about the format of our playoffs until we're blue in the face. We can talk about the value for money for 3 competitive games and 1 Chunder Cup as much as we want. In fact, Anthony has done just that, comparing playoffs to the Conti Cup final in Cardiff in a few weeks' time. And yeah, Anthony, you're not wrong. 50 quid for 6 competitive games, or £100 for 3 games, and the hangover cure. Yep, the Chunder Cup. There are questions about value, but I would argue that the playoff weekend is not just about the games. It's about the weekend itself. It's about being in Nottingham. It's about 10 sets of fans all being in one city, overpaying for accommodation, overpaying for beer, overpaying for food, and clearly overpaying for hockey too. But it's a fantastic experience.
You know, you're saying overpaying, but I think it was actually quite a value for our accommodation this year. It was actually pretty good. But on that, you guys both were maybe talking about heading over this year. Is that still maybe the case for you?
Certainly is for me. It's on the cards. I think if I'm going to go all in on media this year, and just go straight in for. I'm going to get as much experience as I can at the media side of things. Dave, that frees you up to either join me in the media or just get as drunk as possible, and I'll bring a wheelbarrow with me down the train, and that way you can get back to the accommodation.
Yeah, I was thinking that wheelbarrow might work. The likelihood of me going full on press is slim to nil. I can hold the mic with the best of them. That's the best way to put it.
Maybe we will talk. Maybe we will talk Aaron into going along with you boys. Just keep an eye on Dave, make sure he's okay. Unfortunately, I won't be joining you this year. I won't be there to help Dave and make sure he keep them all under control. I will potentially have a 3-week-old baby by that point. So I will not be joining you for playoffs. So that will be a completely different experience for me. But I will be watching, hopefully, from home if they get a TV deal or something sorted for TV. So I won't be joining us, but for good reasons anyway. Guys, I think that's it, really, for this period.
Is that Banners inviting us to the National Division playoffs?
It would be if both weekends don't always tend to be on the same weekend. Anthony, I've said it before, I'd love to go to the National Division playoff final weekend. If it didn't, for some reason, always fall on the same weekend as the Elite League ones. I know last year it did. If it doesn't this year, then it's a potential, but we'll leave it out there.
Well, you get a press pass for that too.
The last question before I move on, Anthony, just that you mentioned in that comment, the best pub in Coventry is around the corner from the Skydome. We'll have to get that name off that for you, because whenever me and Dave went to Coventry, we just kind of stayed in the bar at the arena after the game was over. So we'd like to know for the next time we're in Coventry, whatever that might be. Okay, with that, we will move on to our penalty box segment, because we do have 2 penalties to talk about from here in the Elite League. So let me just find the little button here. Okay, our penalty box segment is just a coverage of penalties and suspensions coming from DOPS or anything of note that we want to have a quick chat about. Two particular DOPS decisions that were made this past weekend, which I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on and we wanted to discuss, guys. The first one is that of Cardiff Devils Chad Petronio. John Petronio. Thank you. On Wednesday night in Glasgow, Devils forward Chad was penalised with a major and a game misconduct for boarding Clan defenseman Nate Callan and causing an injury. He received a 3-game suspension for boarding. Video showed Cardiff dumped the puck into the zone with Callan winning the face-off to lose puck. Collectively, the puck on the side wall. Callan skates deeper into the defensive zone and avoids Devils forward Ben Davies. Chad, seeing Keelan avoids Davies, starts accelerating towards Keelan on the forecheck. Keelan makes a play on the puck, passing it to teammate. And after the puck is released, Chad, moving with an excessive momentum, after travelling from a distance, finishes his check into Callan, throwing him violently into the boards and causing an injury. This is boarding. To summarise, he received 3 games for boarding. Callan was injured on the play, did not return to the game, and as there was no history, and he hasn't been fined or suspended either this season. So he will receive a fine and a suspension for 3 games. The video itself and the actual hit, it does look quite violent, I think. But I
No,
want to
it
get your
doesn't.
thoughts on it. Do you not think it does?
No, it's not boarding.
Do you not?
It's charging.
Okay.
It's not boarding. It's charging. He comes from distance. The problem is, Callan is... There was a hit in the NHL, and there was a back and forth. I think it was McDavid got smashed last week because he made a pass at the backboards and watched his own pass and got absolutely leveled. I can't remember who by. This is the same thing.
Yeah, it's still
Callan is watching his own pass and is not looking for the player coming for him. The one thing that makes it a penalty is that Petronero comes from distance. He comes a considerable distance in to make the hit as well. The puck is gone.
Still not charging though, because he isn't moving with momentum from his feet, which is the definition of charging. He has already set his feet and he's already built up the momentum from beforehand. So he is slowing down due to the nature of reduced momentum.
I think he slows because he has to go round the other Clan player. I'm not discounting that it's not a penalty. It's definitely a penalty. I think boarding is the wrong call.
Yeah,
I think it's closer. I think it's closer to being charging than it is to boarding.
Yeah, but the actual definition of charging is that you're moving with your feet into the check. Like you haven't locked into your parallel pose. You're still got momentum as you go into the check. When it comes to boarding, it's you've locked your feet and you're forcing them into the boards with unnecessary aggression.
What I would say is no matter if the definition of it, if obviously Borden was what was given. It was definitely a penalty. Borden was what was given. Obviously, John, if it was charging, you think it's charging Borden. No matter what, it doesn't matter the term that was used for it. I still think when you watch the video, and especially when you watch it at full speed, it looks aggressive. It does look quite bad, I think, and that's just my own opinion.
One of the only ones that when you watch it at full speed, it looks worse than it is in slow motion.
Yeah.
100%. Usually when you watch it in slow motion, you're like, oh my god, but when you watch this one at full speed, it's tough.
It does look bad, and look, like I've said, I'm not discounting that it's a penalty. My other point is that I think Callan has to take a bit of responsibility as well. This is something that's creeping into the game because we're seeing the end of the enforcers. The other thing about the whole play is that not one Clan player circles back. Not one Clan player thinks that this is a bad hit. Play continues. Play goes up the other end of the ice before the referees have to stop the play because Callan hasn't moved. Now, I remember looking at some of the stuff on social media while this game was happening. I'm pretty sure he was knocked out from this hit. But Callan has to take responsibility for his own safety on the ice as well as part of this. It's a contact sport. You're going to get hit. Stop admiring your own play and be aware that you're probably going to get hit at some point and you're going to get hit hard. I don't agree with the tariff on this one either. I don't think it's 3 games. I think we've seen other hits that have been worthy of bigger tariffs. I think this is a 1 or 2 game. And especially given the fact that Petronero has not been before DOPS up to this point. I think jumping in with 3 is harsh.
I think the thing that I mentioned it the last time we talked about penalties, and I went on my soapbox about it. The reason he's got 3 is that our DOPS take into account that there was an injury on the play. They don't take into account whether there wasn't I don't think he was going out of his way to injure the player by any stretch. It's bad hits, personally 2 games. 3 just seems like they've decided we don't want to see these hits anymore, and they're trying to put a marker down, and they're using the fact he got injured as the excuse.
But they shouldn't be making an excuse.
Yeah, no, I agree.
In fact, while you're chatting about the next one, I'm going to have a look and see if there's been any other boarding bans this season.
Oh no, there's loads. They're all 2 games.
The other DOPS decision that was made from this past weekend was that of the game on the 9th of December. Coventry Blaze taking on the Belfast Giants in Coventry. In the Sky Dome, Ben Lake was penalised with a major and a game misconduct for spearing Blaze player Ian McNulty. As you'll see, and as everybody hasn't seen the video, during play, as both are skating up the ice. Yeah, I think they're coming off the ice anyway. McNulty engages, I think they're heading towards benches. McNulty engages Lake, who turns around, pulls his stick back, and drives his blade into McNulty with a stabbing motion, causing McNulty to fall to the ice. Clear definition of spearing. while McNulty did engage Lake prior to the incident with a one-handed push on the back of Lake's legs, could have warranted a minor penalty, which caused this incident to rise to the level of supplementary discipline. Lake did turn around and confronted McNulty in a way that seemed more aggressive. He chose a disproportionate response to the situation by using his stick in a very dangerous manner, and the area of the body where the spear was delivered and the force of the blow. So he received a 2-game suspension and a fine for spearing, and there was no history of any other suspensions or fines in the Elite League for the 2023-2024 season. Dave, we'll come to you first. I mean, 2 games. When I seen it, I was like, what was he thinking? 2-game suspension for this.
2 games seems a bit excessive in my opinion. They've obviously done it for a reason. I think Ben Lake reacted in that way because I think he has an injured ankle. And he was basically going, what the hell? Because that's what happened. The guy slashed his ankle. But you have to be, you're in charge of your own actions and your own stick, and don't be stupid. Leave the expletives at the door as such. It's completely avoidable. It sounds, even if he only got away, say, with the 2 minutes, even that would have been a stupid penalty to take. Especially given the form of the Giants currently. It's easy for me to say sitting on my chair in my office that you have to turn the other cheek, but whenever there's a possibility where you could be sitting out for 2 minutes, and now this became a 2-game, silly boy.
Yeah, John, coming over to you. Hopefully you've done your bit of that you were looking there, and I can come back to you. Okay. I mean, 2 games. As Dave was saying, that kind of was almost like he lost a bit of discipline in relation to his response. I mean, what's your take on this?
Yeah, this one I think is fair. Dave's said it all really on that one. You have to be responsible for your equipment. We've all laughed at sort of other instances of equipment being used. I think of Joe Grimaldi throwing almost everything that he had on his person at opposition players. But using the stick in that manner is just not acceptable. And unfortunately, this incident somewhat endemic of the discipline problem that the Giants have found themselves in when it comes to in-game play. We find ourselves in the penalty box an awful lot because discipline has been very, very poor. This is an extreme example of it, and Ben shouldn't be using his stick in that manner. I think 2 games. I think 1 or 2 you could have been happy with here. I think the league have made a statement with 2. It's don't use your stick to go at someone. The one thing I will say is that if you're gonna, so Lake is being banned here for using his stick out of play in a motion which is intended to make contact. He gets slashed in the leg at the same time. Dave, you said it. That's out of play. So where is the potential? Where's even the fine? We've seen a couple of times this season that players have been fined without being suspended. So why is there no fine on McNulty for this one? Because it's an unnecessary action with the stick. To me, they have to call both on this one. There has to be some sort of repercussion for what was done, especially if you've got Lake coming from the situation where he's recovering from a lower body injury. It's not right just to lay it all on Ben there. On the previous one that we're talking about, as far as boarding's concerned, you've got 2 which have been 1 game each, and 1 that was just a fine. So 3 games for boarding.
Yeah,
it's nonsense.
Yeah. I guarantee when you check into it, the ones that were given 1 game, there were no injuries, and this is something that I've been on that soapbox about. Yes, we don't want to see injuries, but it's not necessarily the reason to increase the fine.
Well, they need to clarify that. They need to clarify that by saying
clarify.
Look, it's the same issue that we've had with. It's the same issue we've had with DOPS for how long now? It's not clear. They're not telling us why one is different from the other, and they're expecting us to read between the lines. If you want us to agree with the way that you're doing things, be incredibly transparent. Be very, very clear about why this is different from, say, Inglis's 1 game suspension or Prince's 1 game suspension for boarding, or why is it different from Thompson being fined for boarding earlier in the season? Anyway, DOPS.
And
Dops.
it's Dops doing what Dops does. It's just
I
such a shame because we had a period where they were very transparent and they seemed to be every season going a wee bit further back to where they had been 5-10 years ago, whatever it was,
I am going to move us on because I'm aware of our time and we've got still some stuff to go through. But we will be coming back to a discussion around reffing in our overtime segment because we did get a question or two about our thoughts on certain things in reffing. So we will come back to it in our overtime segment. So I'm going to round off this penalty box segment, Dave, and hand over to you for period 2 of hockey.
Hello, and welcome to Period 2 of Hockey, where we'll talk about hockey from everywhere in the world but the UK. And since Marty is the only contributor, I'm going to hand it back over to Marty.
Oh, am I the only? Am I the only one to contribute to this? Oh, what a surprise!
Did you write the penalty box as well, by any chance?
I added that too. Do you want me just to kind of just go
Hot
through?
luck, your order, yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to start off with the first one, which is obviously the story coming from the AHL of the Bob Nardella, who has received a 10-game ban for using what was described as anti-gay language towards a referee in the league, and that was announced this week. The American Hockey League is committed to building a culture that is safe, inclusive, and free from abuse, harassment, and all forms of unethical behaviour or misconduct. The league said in a statement, during the suspension, Nardella will be permitted to participate in team practices on non-game days. He will be eligible to return to the Wolves bench on January 6th. The incident did occur between the Wolves and the Texas Stars, and Texas won the game 8-5. Now, what was said obviously has been put out, obviously for obvious reasons. But what we do know is obviously that this is a massive suspension for 10 games is a big suspension, obviously, to receive for, rightly so. However, what should be noted is that the Chicago Wolves head coach Bob Nordell did come out himself with a statement a number of days following.
So it's unusual that that's unusual that he's been done for this, and he came out earlier in the week, did he?
Thanks, John. He put out the following statement on his social media channels, in which he said, "I firmly deny that I made a homophobic remark during the game last Saturday, December the 9th. I wanted to state clearly that I condemn any form of homophobic language or conduct. I'm a passionate and emotional coach who stands behind my organization when I feel they are wronged. I accept that I lost my temper and I was wrong to do so. I have tremendous respect for the officials and the work that they do, and for the league and those involved. I regret that I did lose my temper, and it is how a coach is not how a coach should act. But I would like to set the record straight that I did not say what I'm accused of saying," and that's basically where he went. It's a he said, she said in this situation, because obviously it's a ref versus a coach and what was being said. But what is clear is that there's not going to be any kind of review on this, and it stands that he will receive a 10-game ban. Now, Chicago Wolves, as far as of looking from today, so this was announced on the, I think this was announced earlier in the week, and as of today, the 14th of December, there's been nothing else that I can see from the Wolves organization to say whether or not that they are getting this reviewed. They haven't said if they are standing by their coach or whatever it is, but at this stage there's been no movement in relation to releasing Bob from his contract with the Wolves, unless any of you guys have seen something separate or different from me. But I think this is a case of, obviously we're saying obviously the Wolves are they're the only independent team in the NHL and don't have an NHL affiliate, is what we should say. But we obviously talk about how important it is, from the leagues in terms of doing their pride events and everything else. And we know the NHL this season have kind of put a stopper in some parts of that, and obviously, that plays a part. But is this a case of an example of why it's needed, or do you think it's a case of more information needs to be put together in terms of to find out, that obviously this he said kind of argument thing that's going on? John, did you get a chance to read the story?
Yeah, I've read the story. I don't think specifically we need to have released what was said or what was alleged to be said. The referee is making a judgment during the game and has to make a call if he believes that something is said. That's fine. What stinks to me about this situation, and I'm not going to say that I know exactly what's happened or what has or hasn't been said, but this is the AHL. there will be a mechanism for this coach to appeal this ban. For him to come out in a statement and say, I didn't say this, well, that's fine. Go through the process then. Go through the appeals process and appeal your ban if you can say with your hand in your heart that you didn't do it. If not, don't come out and make a statement which is false if he said what he said, or what is alleged to have been said, and just accept your ban because it's not acceptable. And the league have deemed that your actions to be unacceptable. Accept your punishment, learn from it, move on when you're allowed back on the bench.
I guess it's hard, obviously, Dave, John was mentioned there, obviously go through the appeals process that's in place. But in this instance, if it's if it is a one word against the other, there's not always, it's not like the refs / coaches are always mic'd up. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Most of the times they're not, and therefore not picked up by microphones and stuff. So it is a case of, it would be a hard thing to kind of prove that you didn't, but then I suppose on the other hand, it'd be a hard thing to prove that you did, I guess.
Yeah, so it's in my opinion, for the coach, even if he didn't say it, which we don't know, whether the league believes he did, all that, there's nothing good can come out of the appeal, because all that will happen is it will be a lot of people trying to prove that he made homophobic statements, and he's not coming out of that looking well, no matter if he's found guilty or innocent as such, because people will only report on what is reportable. They won't really care if it's he's proven innocent or not. If you're, but on the other side of that, if you're going to impart bans of this caliber, then you need to mic up your coaches if that's what you're going to be doing. So that it removes that ambiguity. And I know that that's an extra cost and all that, but if that is something you're enforcing, and to enforce at that level, then you need to put in the equipment in the same way that they do for the actual hockey. So you have to give, if you're going to enforce those other bits, you need to give it the same care and attention. You wouldn't award a goal without knowing the goal's been scored. In the same breath, you shouldn't be suspending unless you have somebody that you have the evidence to do it. Yes, it's if he has said it and is hiding behind you can't prove it, then that's awful. But I guarantee there's more people that are getting away with it than that are getting caught. So if they want to do it properly, mic all their coaches up.
Yeah, agreed. Anybody have anything else in that story before I move on? Nope. Dave, I'm going to move on to the next one then, if that's okay. And this is following, obviously, a very familiar name from the Elite Ice Hockey League and the Belfast Giants, taking over as a coach or on the coaching staff for your own Minnesota Wild in our last recording. We have another announcement this past week in the form of former Clan player coach Drew Bannister has been named the interim head coach of the St. Louis Blues. Bannister was Clan player coach in 2011, 2012, and was also a player assistant coach for the Hull Stingrays in the season before that.
Fairly going up in the world.
It's fairly taken over. Hull Stingrays, Clan, and now up to the interim coach for the St. Louis Blues. Similar to what we said in our last podcast, I mean, it's great to see those names from the Elite League popping up in the world of in the high pinnacle of our sport.
Show.
I mean, the show they're appearing in the show for in whatever way they are. Maybe not as players, but they're still hitting those impacts. In terms of head coach just as important. I mean, John. I mean, this is something, another great coup, I suppose, for the Elite League to kind of have their name put across, because obviously the pits that were put out whenever they're talking about his history and his background, obviously the Elite League pops up as part of his history. It just brings it to the forefront of the NHL.
It's his last pro team. He retired as a player straight out of as it was then, Braehead. It's interesting looking at his stats from that year. So 51 games, 13 goals, 29 assists for 42 points, 110 penalty minutes across the season. So he's sitting on just over, or round about actually, two 2 penalty minutes a game. So not the worst, but clearly maybe someone who's got a mildly short temper on him.
Takes no nonsense by the sounds of things.
Takes no nonsense, likely to be a decent kind of guy in the room as well, but not take away from his other pedigree. I mean, this is a guy who has previous Tampa Bay for a couple of seasons, Oilers for a couple of seasons, Ducks, back to the Lightning, the Rangers, back to the Ducks again, were his last NHL, over to Liga, and then a couple of seasons in Russia, the Dell 2, and then finishing up across in the Elite League with Hull and Braehead. So this is a guy with a decent tick list behind him. So smart hire. He's obviously had a quiet few years building up his managerial experience and stepping up to the show. Now, it's the point to make that he's only been hired as an interim head coach at the minute with the Blues. Mm-hmm. So whether he just sees through this season and the Blues look to make a change. But again, like you say, Marty, it's seen the Elite League for what is basically the second time in a month be highlighted because of coaching changes within the NHL. It's fantastic.
It maybe hasn't went down very well with the fan base, just in relation to the decisions that were made. Let's be honest. I think the majority of response from the fan base there instantly has been quite negative in relation to. I don't think it was his fault. I think they believe that the ownership of the team, they didn't feel that the last coach was the issue, and I think that they were quite loud about saying that. The one comment that I did love about that I read, which I just wanted to highlight here, was from a person whose Twitter handle or X handle is @RedBlue1922. His tweet was phenomenal. It was like, now this coach is one who definitely inspires confidence. I mean, that's a man that the players can really lean on. It's funny. Bannister. It's really good. I thought. Yeah, exactly. Thanks. I'm glad you found this funny.
He'll lead them. He'll lead them well up the ladder.
Hey. One step at a time.
Another great move. Another great to see that happening. And another name, familiar name in the NHL. My last story for this period, before we do have a penalty box set, we do have a penalty box one to talk about in this period as well, Dave. But my last story for this period is the story that came out. I think it was yesterday afternoon, or I should say December 13th for anybody who's watching this or listening to the podcast on Friday. Monumental Sports has announced plans to move the Washington Capitals and the Washington Wizards home arena from Washington, D.C. to Alexandria, Virginia. This is 100% being confirmed, and the Capitals and the Wizards will be moving to new home in 2025, I believe, is the date that they've got for this. I suppose this is a big one. I don't think anybody was expecting this news to come out. I think this has taken a lot of people by surprise. Moving the Washington Capitals as they are outside of the main area of where they were kind of obviously born and obviously where they belong in terms of the capital city of in America. I mean, moving it to Alexandria, are we going to see a name change? Sorry, thank you, Anthony. He's corrected it. The development will start in 2025 and they will move in 2028. Thank you so much. But, I mean, do we see a name change? Do we see...
Or outside of DC, are they?
Yeah, they're outside of DC. They're into VA. So I can't see how they continue as... Well, for a start, I don't see how they continue as Washington. So I think we see a new name. Anthony's making the point that it's still sort of in the metro area. It's suburban. And to be honest, it's probably no different. Like I've spoken about how
Glasgow,
Ottawa. Well, Glasgow's a good example. Ottawa is one. And actually, I've seen. I think maybe in the run up to this, I think this was known. This announcement was kind of coming. And a few places on X and other social medias have been putting out where your team would be if they were as far away from City Hall as Ottawa's Canadian Tire Centre is. Some of them are brutal. Like some of them are out like way beyond the public transport networks. Like Ottawa is awful. How they get away with having that arena as far out the city as it is. Like it took me 3 buses to get there, and that was from the city centre. trying to get out there. Maybe it's easier here. Maybe they can argue that the branding stays the same. But I don't know. I'd be inclined to change things up a little bit, given that you're moving home. Yes, it's nice to continue on a brand, but I'd like to move it on.
It's literally like, I'm sorry, I just decided to look it up in the map, and it is there's like the dotted line for the DC area, and it's just like on the map, it's like less than a centimeter. It's really, really close. Obviously DC being what it is, it's basically really condensed in a small space. Literally just the city, being in parts of it being kind of in Maryland, kind of in Virginia. It's that tiny sort of microcosm. If this was, for example, London, they would still technically count as being in London. But it's just the fact that DC has very strict lines of when it ends because of the nature of the USA.
I mean, let's look at the positives though, for this move. I mean, because there is some positives that can be taken from this. Obviously, the decision to move both the Wizards and the Capitals out of their current home in DC to a new state of the art arena. It's 8.6 miles down the road from where they currently are. It's a 20,000 seat arena that's going to be designed. It's new practice facilities for both teams. There's going to be an expanded esports facility, a performing arts venue, and they'll have what they're calling a fan plaza. Currently, if you go to Washington and you've went to see the Washington Capitals, the stadium for the Caps is right in the center of DC. There's not a lot of fan plaza area space for that to take place. So, I mean, even having that as an area, and like if you think about whenever we went to Vegas and having just that area that congregate for all the fans to get together, have all that stuff, that little square just outside their arena. I mean, having that really does make an effect in terms of the environment on game day itself. So having something like that even will add to the overall experience for fans going to those games. I mean, I think in general it's a positive in some ways.
Yeah, no, I do agree. The having more facilities outside of just the match does nothing but help the game night experience, and it definitely is a huge, in the long term, will be a huge win. It'll just depend on whether they continue to lean into their current identity, or if they decide to do this as a fresh one. Personally, I would be staying with the same branding and identity just because of what they've started to build. I know they haven't, I suppose they have won their trophy, I suppose, but
Anthony, as our Caps fan, has come back and said that the owner has confirmed that they won't be changing name.
Okay.
So the branding stays the same. The Caps remain.
To be fair, I didn't think they would. It was just a kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke and comment about it, because obviously moving out of Washington, moving out of DC, it was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek. We didn't think they were going to change name, realistically. But it was just it was definitely an interesting story.
Do you think they changed their logo and put Mel Gibson's face on the eagle?
You never know.
Start saying purple funny. Yeah. Awesome.
That's the last story.
Yeah. I think then we're ready to move on to the penalty box, and then you can kick that off too.
I will do. Yep, I have one big penalty actually to talk about.
Oh yes, I've seen this one.
Done the rounds. I think this was on everybody's social media screens. Anybody who's a hockey fan, anyway, I think probably seen this at some point this past week. The Detroit Red Wings forward David Perron has been suspended for 6 games without pay for cross-checking Ottawa Senators defenseman Artem Zub during NHL game number 412 in Detroit on Saturday, December 9th. The National Hockey League's Department of Player Safety announced. Incident occurred at 13:50 on the first period, and Perron was assessed a match penalty. Under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement and based on the average annual salary, Perron will forfeit $148,437.48. The money goes to the player's emergency assistance fund. Boys, did you see? Did you see this hit? I mean, did you? I mean, if you watch it, Art Zub just kind of. I mean, he collapses. Like a bag of spuds, like properly goes down and is unconscious. Like how has to be helped off the ice, by two teammates.
Well, no, that's it's the cross check that comes in. So
After that, yeah.
Zub, sorry, is the one who has done something. Now the video only starts after the other Red Wing player is down in front of the crease.
Yes.
Now when Perron comes in, because the video starts too early, I can't see what's happened. I can't see why the Red Wing is down. So I don't know what action has been taken there. But if you want to hold someone to task, you grab them, you drop the gloves. What you don't do is cross-check someone in the side of the head like this.
Especially whenever that person's calling for the medic.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the thing that got me. He's literally waving for the medic, and then this comes into the face. You know, it's tough.
It's brutal. It is absolutely brutal. It is a rush of blood to the head, doing something stupid. I mean, this is Joe Grimaldi level of nonsense when it comes to being an enforcer on the ice. Absolutely, like, despicable. Literally trying to take the guy's head off. The only way that could be worse is if he two-handed swung his stick at him in the head instead of actually cross-checked him. It's absolutely brutal. 6 games, 100%. And glad to see that fines, we can actually be told by the biggest league in the world what the fine actually means and where it goes. Take note, Elite League Dops.
Is it a case of maybe is it Elite League Dops is like you get fined for the games that you're not playing, you get fined at the same amount for the days that you don't play, i.e. 1 day of your wage, and therefore they don't want to tell people how much wage the player is on. Is that what it is? Is that what we're learning?
2 pints of lager and a pint of Chris, you know.
Oh, harsh. What I will say is, this is obviously one hit that happened this week. This is one hit that happened this week, which was obviously caught and the suspension was obviously granted for this one. I don't know if it's you guys or if it's just me, or if you guys have been seeing just a lot more just really aggressive hits this past week or so in the NHL.
It's not this week. This is endemic.
I've seen a story going about today. Sorry, I'll just finish what I was saying there. I seen a story this week where they were saying about how is it a case of the style of play is changing and therefore is it just that the what used to be kind of like a defenseman's bread and butter in terms of how they defended and hit and checked has kind of changed with these new kind of style of play from forwards and stuff, and it was quite an interesting one. But John, sorry, you were saying there. I didn't mean it.
It's a major. We're seeing it in every league. It's a major part of fighting and enforcers coming out of the game. The speed is increasing. With the speed increasing, and the stature of players also increasing and becoming more and more athletic, it means the hits are getting bigger as well. And with the enforcers not being there, and nobody... I mean, you still get the odd fight, but nowhere near what we used to get. People are getting away with bigger hits. So because they feel like they can get away with it, they're willing to take a bigger risk with the physical side of play to try and take out top-end players. I talked about it before. If I get the chance, I'll send you guys the link to the hit that was made on McDavid. But 3-4 seasons ago, that hit doesn't get made because somebody goes over and takes that guy's head off for hitting their top line scorer. Now, you end up with a situation where rather than having enforcers, you've got people like Perron who have to go over and cross-check someone in the head, and that's where we see these hits coming in. And it's people making rash decisions because there's no one else to make any sort of effort to make somebody pay for a bad hit.
Yeah,
I do agree with that. And also with the changes to the body armor and whatnot has made it less likely that you'll injure yourself.
Yep.
In your hit. So the hits have got bigger. It's something we have seen similar in boxing. With the gloves getting the padding getting better and the protection around the boxer's hands getting better. This has led to bigger injuries to actual boxers. because they're able to hit harder, and it's the same sort of thing we're seeing here. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Because it's not going to be an easy fix.
Yep.
Well, I think that's us then. That's the last piece for period 2 and the penalty box. So I think we're good to move on to period 3.
No worries.
Period 3 is our general Knocky news. Knocky news is anything and everything else in the world of hockey that we don't think fits neatly into period 1 or period 2, or it's very quickly becoming our period where we talk about nothing but jerseys. But we're going to start with a couple other things before we get stuck into a few jerseys here. Marty, you've got a couple of stories here that I want to come to. I did see this first one, the kids game. Kid decided to throw a particular object onto the ice, and it's had an impact on a player.
Yes, and actually, the other story you're talking about, I added it into your part of yours, so you can just talk. We can talk about the other part at the end of your talk about jerseys because it falls in the same category and it's images. So we'll show it on screen. This was a 10-minute misconduct was awarded in an ECHL game recently, and I'm going to need John. I'm going to need your support and your help to name this player again. I'm going to call him Kirill. I'm not going to try Yeah.
Wow, I'll be honest, that's a lot of Y's in a name.
That's a lot of Y's. I don't know how to pronounce that at all.
I'm gonna go with Tutiev. I'm gonna go with Tutiev, and I might be completely wrong.
I'm gonna take that because it looks okay. So we'll go with Tutiev as well. But he was handed out a 10-minute misconduct for throwing a chicken nugget back into the crowd. A child, as you say, or someone threw a chicken nugget onto the ice during the game. And as a response, Kirill launches the chicken nugget back into the crowd. And I believe it did hit someone in the crowd. But as a result, he received a 10-minute misconduct for his actions of throwing it back onto back into the crowd. Or I suppose not even throwing it. He lobbed it back in using his stick. But 10 minutes for throwing 10 minutes for chicken nugget launching. What do you think? Is it new for you? Have you ever heard it before?
I've never heard of somebody. Honestly, that's high protein. Like if he's knackered, he should be just lifting that and eating it.
There's mustard, you know.
But you can understand. Like I believe I read somewhere that this was a special like daytime game that was put on between. Now this is Kalamazoo and Toledo, the Walleyes, and the player himself is from Toledo, and obviously it's a crowd full of kids. I think it was a lot of school groups and things were at this game. Kids get out of control fairly easily. Someone's thrown a chicken nugget on the ice, and it's got launched back. It doesn't really matter when the game is or who the crowd are or anything. A player has to understand that launching something back off the ice, no fan should put something onto the ice, but launching it back with the speed and force that you can get on it with a hockey stick should not be the way that you do things, because if that's a puck, then that's going to cause serious injury.
Anthony's on fire.
Yes, chicken nuggets do fly better than chicken wings, as it turns out.
The one thing as well I did like is the angle of the video that was taken for this one was done right in front of a Wendy's sponsorship banner, which is clearly right in the middle of the screen. So I thought that was really it was pretty good product placement right there. I don't know. I'm sure Wendy's do chicken nuggets. Obviously, we don't have Wendy's. Oh, we used to have a Wendy's. I think there's a Wendy's in England somewhere. I think there's like one or two, I believe. I think, or there used to be anyway. Anyway, moving on.
Welcome to the Door 14 Fast Food Podcast.
Yeah. Moving on.
Wild speculation.
Marty, if you want to switch up what's on the screen here, let's get into the festive jerseys and festive gear side of things. So, guys, I couldn't help but put this up first. The Nashville Predators last week had Star Wars Night. Now, in amongst some incredibly terrible acting that was put on their X and other social medias with some players reliving some classic moments from Star Wars, the Baby Yoda jersey that they wore for warm-ups, and that were available to the first 100 fans who went through the doors and were willing to part with just $50. That is a fantastic jersey. I absolutely love that. What's the thoughts?
You know,
That's
anything
pretty cool.
anything that's got Grogu on it, I'm in. You know, I'm sold. You know.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's right. I shouldn't have said Baby Yoda. I should have said Grogu.
Yeah, no, I do. Pretty cool.
Okay, so that's our first one. Sorry, Dave.
I do like the Preds logo in the stars.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's
in the
cool.
bottom
It's-
corner.
it's cool.
Oh, I hadn't noticed that. That's pretty good. Yeah, I do love this one. Even I agree that even I would wear gold in this case. I do like this one. Next
You're
one.
damn right, it's gold. Yeah, so things got even more interesting. So we've had a few EIHL teams have released Christmas jerseys up to this point. I think all of us are currently wearing some different variation of Giants Christmas jerseys from seasons past. And guys, I'm not. I didn't forget. I got my deco out. It's over here. This is my gar side. This is my gar side. But it's Christmas time, so I've got to get my deco out. Coventry Blaze have released this. Now, I have my own feelings on this jersey, guys. I think it's awful.
I don't know where it says Christmas.
It's obviously
there's
a
just-
snowy.
There's
It's a
there's
snowy.
sleds.
Yeah, it's a snowy townscape. But other than that, I'm lost in amongst
If it
this
wasn't-
jersey.
if it wasn't for the sled, it looks like their Halloween jersey, doesn't it?
It's too busy. There's too
It
much
is-
going on.
It is so busy. It's an assault to the eyes. Like, it's so busy. Like, so much going on.
You know what I do like? The candy canes on the neck. I do like that.
Yeah, that's the only design element I like on this. Is that the rest of that is just that is an example of how not to design not just a Christmas jersey but any jersey. That thing is horrendous. God love anyone who buys shirt off the back tickets for that one in Coventry. I believe that's being worn in the next week or so, obviously, because Christmas is only about a week and a half away now. So good luck to anyone. However, another team in Coventry have done a much better job, and this is the NIHL Blaze.
Oh, that's nice.
Guys, this is a team playing out of the same building. That is a Christmas jersey.
That's a proper jersey. I like it.
You've got
Yeah,
the Christmas
that's-
design. It's an ugly sweater design. It's
Yeah.
got the snowmen on it, and even what they've done with their logo is just it's fantastic.
Love the
The
numbers.
only thing I don't like is the font that they've used for the name and numbers because it
Oh, I
looks-
like that.
Oh, I like it too. I really like it too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it looks like bones.
No, I think it looks really it looks kind of like, you know, something like from an old Santa Christmas movie kind of idea, like a
something
like a North
Scandinavian or
Pole.
something.
Yeah, it does look quite like that. I do like it. What I like about this is that, as you guys have said, it is that ugly sweater idea, but it's an ugly sweater done well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So we've seen the ugly sweaters, other teams doing ugly sweaters before, which just didn't really work, or there's too overpowering. This one works really, really well. Yeah, I agree. I really like this one. It's really nice.
Yeah, they've got that absolutely spot on with that one. We move on then. So keeping it within the Elite League, and I do think that we've shown this because I think we showed this
Yeah.
whenever the Giants released this, but I thought it's the last episode before Christmas, so let's revisit it again. Guys, again, I made my comments on this jersey before. It's don't get me wrong, it's not a Coventry Christmas jersey, but it's lazy. It's not my favourite jersey ever. They've thrown a few candy canes and a few different coloured snowflakes on there, and that's about it. I'm not a real fan. They haven't even made an effort with Finn this year, which feels really disappointing. Like, even you'll probably not be able to see it, but on my Dicko, Finn at least has a beard and a Santa hat.
I think that it's not my favorite Christmas jersey. It sounds really random, but yes, it's a bit lazy. I think the candy canes actually make it worse. I think even if it had just been the snowflakes, it probably actually would have looked better. It's just a bit out there, if you know what I mean. It's not very, they've just went, I need a few generic things, let's slap them on. There's nothing wrong. And again, like I said, this is the time. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not great. It's uninspired. I think we've mentioned it in a couple of jerseys. It's just very.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, it's like it is what it is. It's fine, but yeah, I think there's been better designs in the past, and yeah, just
I do like a bit of over topness sometimes with it. These jersey, the one I'm wearing at the minute, is the most tacky Christmas jumper you'll ever have, but I love it. The silhouetted Santa and all.
Yeah. So yeah, we've seen better. But when it comes to sort of design elements, we'll go back over to the NIHL, Marty, now, and let's have a look at the Swindon Wildcats. They've gone a different way with it. They've gone with the elf motif. It's much more simple. I don't think I've seen numbers as big as this on the back of a jersey for a long time. But this, to me, this kind of works in a simple. Yeah. If you're going to do something simple, do it well, and this does simple well.
The thing is, like like the Giants one there now is quite tame compared to ones they've done previously. The Giants did something similar to this last year or the year before. You remember they went all out as an elf thing, and they had the players dressed in like elf socks, and it was complete. The full look was I think one night they had them as Santa. I think was one of the nights they had jerseys and stuff was designed like Santa, and then on the second Christmas night they had them in elf outfits that looked very similar to this. And I like it when they go with this idea of like all out, go for it. If you're going to do a festive jersey, just go all out and just do it. And I think I like this one. I do like this one because they are embracing it, and it's just like you can probably tell like this is a proper Christmas. And kids that are going to be in the arena. I mean, the big thing about it is we all know that when it comes to the festive games are usually a bit earlier in the day. Lots more kids come into the festive games like we see in a Sunday game here in Belfast. It's part and parcel for kids as well. Like kids will love these jerseys as much as the adults probably will as well. But like it's fun. And I do like. I know I like this one. I do like it. I do like the overtopness. And I think I prefer this over the ones we've seen so far.
Agreed.
Yep. I'm going to stick with jerseys just for a second, Marty, and we're going to have a jump over to Dundee. However, we're not sticking with the Christmas motif just for a second here. We're jumping ahead to Hogmanay, actually, to New Year's. The Dundee Stars recently did a competition to design a tartan for the Dundee Stars. They had over 1,000 entries to the competition, and Frankie Henry, Primary 5 from Tayview Primary School in Dundee, was the competition winner. He got some guidance and advice from local fashion designer Hayley Scanlon after having won the competition, to be fair, to finalise his design and how it would look in a jersey. And the Stars took him down to the V&A Museum, brand new, fantastic building in Dundee seafront, or on the Tay, I should say. It's not really the sea there. And they finalised what his jersey is going to look like, and the Stars have put this out just this week. We had a conversation on our WhatsApp about this, and I feel like he has been a little bit short-changed on this. The Stars have gone with the grey being the dominant colour, with the tartan being contained to within the Stars. I'd like to see that tartan shown off more. It's a muted tartan. It's a blue and red tartan with a few little gold and green tones through it. Great looking tartan, but I'm not sure about the final design of this jersey.
The Scotsman in you is completely showing through right now, John Ford. We know you love, like we talked about that tartan jersey that the Clan put out earlier this season, and you loved it because it was over the top. It was all like it was properly in your face. I'm the opposite way around with this jersey in that I really, really like this jersey, and the fact that the tartan it's there, it's clear to see, it's amalgamated well into this jersey. It looks in place and it's not overwhelming. I think sometimes whenever some of the jerseys use the tartan and it's like right in your face, like your Fife one is just completely overwhelming again to the senses whenever you look at it. But this one I really like because it's there and you can see it and it's clear what it is, and it's a nice subtle tone to it, and it's definitely something I would like. Again, I think that's just your Scottishness obviously coming through. You like if it was fully tartan, I think you'd love it. Whereas I'm completely opposite way around. I think this looks really well. I think it's done quite tastefully.
I think they're very close. They're very close to getting it right. And the thing that is annoying me is the bold red. And I know why they're doing it. They want to emphasize the additional color. But if it had to been just the tartan star, and with maybe a white outline, so you increase the amount of tartan, and get rid of that bold red, I think that would work really well. Because and even add in a little bit more tartan on the back as well, because it's only going to there's only going to be patches of it.
I think if the numbers
had been sublimated with that, and I also think that the hem at the bottom and the arms could also have been in the tartan as well, just to add those details.
If they keep the white border, then they can add spots of that tartan wherever they want without it becoming too busy. Like if it's along the hem, then you can use the white to break it up between the two areas. You could have changed it, instead of having a hem, do a stripe, a tartan stripe over the elbows. But then you might get a lovely bit of color there.
But then was this design, you were saying that this kid did this design, the tartan design, but did he also help with did he also get to take part in the design of the jersey itself? Like
to design the jersey, he got to help, but the fashion designer Hayley Scanlon helped put the whole jersey together. So she's had a major hand in putting this together. I think they're almost there, but it's just not quite it's not polished enough.
I love what they're going for.
Mike's saying pretty much the same, that they're missing out on things. Put the tartan stripe over his shoulder, Dundee logo through the middle of it. Yeah, absolutely, that would look great. It would look like a tartan sash. It would look like so over the shoulder, that type of thing. Yeah, it would be absolutely brilliant.
Hopefully they keep the tartan and they keep using it. Now that they have it, that's the big thing. They make it key to their third jersey, for example. I think they'd be on to a winner, because that's we know that sells, especially obviously in Scotland. And if they can make it part of the identity, then it's not just the Dundee Stars, it's Dundee Stars, and it's their tartan. It becomes a big thing.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
But that becomes a merchandising thing as well. You don't just have to put it on a jersey; you can put it on a lot of stuff. And that could be pretty cool. Yeah. Right, let's go sort of wintry festive again, Marty, and you threw this one in, so I'm going to let you take it.
Yeah, this was obviously another hockey-themed, Christmas-themed festive item that has been put out this past week. This is a mask belonging to Vlad Podopolsky from the KHL. This was revealed at the All-Star game, which happened recently. I mean, this is probably one of the coolest buckets I have seen ever designed. I genuinely think this thing is fantastic. I love the pom-pom at the top. I love the stitching at the back of it, and even the whole way through with its woolen look. And if you really zoom into it, you can clearly see the little individual parts where it looks like it's all individually put together, like it's been like literally someone has knitted the whole thing together. I just think the whole concept of it is fantastic. I'm a big fan of like winter hats anyway, so this definitely is something I really, really like. John, you're shaking your head.
Nope. The hat is cool. The scarf is cool. The idea of having ears and sideburns and a bit of hair sticking out the bottom painted on your lid, absolutely not. No chance.
You know what puts me off? The skin on the cage.
Yep.
I can live with it on the sides. It's the skin on the cage. It just looks a bit.
It's like flesh mask. Like it's just it's like body. It's like body horror a little bit. Like I'm not here for it really.
But I can live with the sides, but the hat and pom pom is just absolutely inspired.
Yep. That is.
You're just haters. You're just complete haters. The one thing
No
I will say,
imagination, isn't that right?
none. I should just mention. Obviously, we're talking about I would just mention this was revealed for the KHL All-Star game. The one thing I will say is there's another goaltender in the KHL All-Star game that hit the headlines this week or hit the news. Just going to quickly touch upon this before we move on, and that is the game where the former Moose goalie. Burden picked up the puck behind his goal, went length of the ice, dangled his way through defenders, and scored the 6th goal of the game.
Even strength as well.
Even strength. Did you guys see it?
Mm.
I'm just saying, it's an all-star game. It's
it's
a designed breakaway. Let's not blow this play out of proportion.
No,
if that happens in a normal game, he gets leveled before he reaches center ice.
Yes, I agree.
It's a penalty at center ice, so. It's a penalty as he crosses the center ice. So
it was worth there's an open because it was pretty fun to see because you don't see it that often. I just thought
some lovely stick skills.
Yeah. Right, that brings us to the end of Knocky News. Is this my moment to have a moan, Marty?
I will give you 2 minutes. I'll give you a minute and a half to moan.
Minute and a half to moan. Right, minute and a half to moan. As most of you know, we've started a new segment on the podcast called 14 with 14, where we are trying to chat with the 14s across the league, of which there are, I believe, 7, and we're also throwing it out to the 3 number 15s that are across the league as well. This last 3 weeks, I've been trying to get in contact with the remaining teams that I haven't been able to get in touch with, of which there were, up until this week, 7 of. Now, one team have given us assurances that we can chat to them in the new year. And this week, I got assurances from another team that we can have a chat with them in the new year and we'll organise something. However, that still leaves more than half of the league who have not picked up their emails, haven't bothered to respond, and no matter what way I go through, short of actually picking up the phone and phoning their offices to force a reaction, they're just not interested. Some are super interested. Like we've seen Guildford, the team who nearly won the league last year, were one of the first ones to jump on and say, absolutely, John, we'd love to sort that for you. We've seen Fife, who were very quick as well to come on and say, yeah, let's do it.
15 seconds.
The rest of the league seems to be quite happy to remain the biggest secret in sports. We're offering free PR. We're offering to get your players out there, your brand out there.
And we're big in
Come
Columbus.
And chat to us. We are big in Columbus.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much, John.
I was expecting that to say, shut up, John.
I didn't have that ready. I should have. Next time I will. We have one last part of our episode before we sign off for this week, and it is our overtime segment. We have technically 2 pieces, so we will run through both because I think it's worth it. I don't mind that we're running over a bit this week. It's okay. The first one is coming back to the reffing in the Elite Ice Hockey League. We did have a question from who's becoming one of our biggest followers, who's always usually on. I don't know if he's on tonight or not. But Fuzzy number 1, our friend of ours, Fuzz, he has sent
our second most loyalist fan.
Yeah, our second most loyalist fan. Another week, another coach. I'm going to change the word that he put in. He said a certain word, but I'm going to change it to annoyed at the standard of reffing in the league. Is this the worst standard we're seeing, from wrong calls to missed calls? Would like to hear your thoughts. I think this is in reference to this past week. We've seen Mark Lefebvre, I think it was, maybe from the Dundee Stars, losing his cool and completely smashing, I think, a stick. Completely frustrated with calls were being made there in that game. We also seen the head coach of the Belfast Giants, Adam Keefe, not losing his cool at the things that happened this past weekend with a certain ref that was on the league, but in his post-game interview, there's a nice little snippet and a gif of what we could say is Adam making it very clear, using his eyes and his eyebrows, about what he thought of the standard of reffing in the league this past weekend. John, I'll come to you first. So, given given Fuzz's question there, what's your thoughts? Do you feel that the standard has dropped a bit from previous seasons?
I think it's a hard one. We have been used to a certain level of officiating in the Elite League, and staying diplomatic on it, that level has not been fantastic. However, the caliber of player who's coming to the league, the caliber of the coaching, the passion that's coming from the coaching staff and from players is ever increasing. The professionalism of the teams is increasing as well, and what's not increasing at the same rate is the skill base and the consistency of the refereeing, and that's across the board. You could single out one or two, as the likes of Scott Conway have, or if you look at social media, you will know that one or two referees in particular, their name gets bandied about. Yes, they need to be supported to increase their skill base. Let's not forget that one or two of our referees are consistently called up by the IIHF. So they are seen to be of a level that they are called to the IIHF. And one of those names in particular who's constantly gets called up is one of the ones whose name is bandying about just now about lack of consistency and a lack of professionalism coming from his on-ice demeanour. There has been a lot of chat about not being able to take what they give out when it comes to the use of language during a game. And I think that seems to be very, very true, actually. I think there are officials who need to grow a slightly thicker skin that if they're going to talk and converse with players and coaching staff and bench staff in a certain way, they have to accept being spoken to in exactly the same way. Act in a way in which you expect to be spoken to. You're taught that at primary school, guys. The Elite League and the refereeing section and Mike Hicks need to take this in hand, and they need to look at developing referees and linesmen faster and better, because the rest of the league is advancing at a rate that is outstripping the way that referees are being brought up, and it's only going to lead to more and more of these problems. It's going to lead to distrust from players and from coaching staff of what the referees are actually capable of doing, and ultimately that's going to affect the product that we see on ice. Again, we can't have a game without them, so they need to be supported.
Yeah. Dave, any other thoughts?
Yeah, huge parts of that I agree with. The reffing in the Elite League is... My problem with the reffing in the Elite League is it's hit and miss. And it's not even just hit and miss between coaches, it's hit and miss between games. You can have the same coach 2 or 3, and we do, 2 or 3 games in a row, and one game they can do really well, and then the next game it can be absolutely dire. More and more games, you may agree with me, is that we're seeing a lot more involvement from the ref than we would have expected. I can live with bad reffing when it's missed calls, in the sense of every ref's going to miss a call. They're not going to get everything. It's impossible to catch every infraction. But it's whenever a ref tries to get every call, and then misses. That means that those 1 or 2 ones that are missed are blatant, because you're like, well, why all the rest of the penalties were called? And it becomes this feeling like they are more involved in the game than you would want them to be. I don't want to go home at the end of the night and know the ref's name. And it's far too often that I'm coming at the end of a match and I know who the ref was, to the point where I know who the ref is now going into a match. And we're like, well, right, okay, so we're going to have X number of power plays. Like going back to the good old days when we used to see somebody give out the slashing every other period. It almost became a meme. But 100%, the work needs to be put in by the league. I personally don't think it's a failing on individual part, because I've seen great games from almost all our referees, but there's obviously not the support from the entire league to improve them at the same pace, like John said. And it means that there's going to be games where they're out of step. This is probably the best way to put it. So it's a terrible job to do. I don't know if I could do it. Obviously, fitness, I definitely couldn't do it. But psychologically as well, it's a lot to take on. And if they're not being supported by the league for improvement, I'm sure they're not having a great time at some of these matches.
What's your thoughts, Marty?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have put it really well. I think I can't really add anything else to what you guys have kind of already said. I would agree that there's a level of involvement that the refs seem to be getting. The refs seem to be getting involved with a lot more at the moment. And as you said, Dave, you worded it really well. There's a point where you're kind of thinking to yourself, why am I seeing ref/linesman being involved so often in this game? Like, why is my attention being drawn to them more than some parts, and why is it, there's an aspect of that. The one thing I will say is that I don't know if it's been an increase or not, but what I will say, what I feel is that I'll be the first person in the crowd. Like, I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm not we put our hands up. We're not experts at all in any way, shape, or form. But I know if there's a call being called, I know when to admit if there's a legitimate penalty call. The one thing I don't like is when and all home fans in every single arena across, you can say you don't, but every home fan in every single arena around this league, they will, as soon as they feel aggrieved by something, and then they start yelling and shouting and saying, "Oh, you whatever it is," complaining about it. I'll probably be the ones sitting there being like, "Nope, that was a fair call." Yeah. And you've got people around you going, "Oh, it's a slash, it's a slash." Like, nope, definitely not. Nope.
We've been in that position an awful lot recently. The RE section has went from being relatively quiet to extremely busy, and we're not behind the doors on our opinion, whether it be good or bad for the Giants, and we have had a lot of counter comments sent towards our way when we go, "What are you talking about? That was fine,
Fine, yeah. Like if it was a questionable hit, you'd be like, "Nope, that was clean. That was a proper clean hit," and there's no reason for that to be called. I don't know why.
I don't mind the shouting. I don't mind the shouting about it, because that's it's passion. But when it's vitriolic, at the clean hit on a Giant, if someone gets a clean hit on a Giant, shout about the hit and go, I wish you hadn't done that. That's awful. Yeah. Not, why is that not a call? Well, it's not a call because it's not a call. It's a clean hit. It's And these are people who continually come to games but don't learn. And it's really annoying.
The last thing I'll say on this before I move on to the next question, the one thing I will say is that I think we're all in agreement that it's a tough job. And I would not want to be that. I would not want to be doing the job, and that's the problem. No one really wants to do the job. So we have people in the league who we got refs and linesmen who are willing to do it, but as you guys have already alluded to, there just doesn't seem to be an investment in the development of that, and it doesn't seem to come along at the same speed as the rest of the league in terms of quality and development. So definitely something that needs to be reviewed. Guys, I'm going to move on to the last question before we finish off for this week. And because it is Christmas and because we're signing off for a Christmas period, I'm going to ask you both to be quite honest with this next question. So this is a question that came through from my own lovely wife. She asked me this question, and I thought I'd put it to you guys. Coming up to the season of giving and Christmas presents galore, of people giving you Christmas presents. As hockey fans, as we've been hockey fans for a number of years now, at some stage over the course of your whatever length of time you have been hockey fans, I am pretty sure that without a doubt, at least every one of us has been given a hockey-themed gift. By someone, either through work, maybe because someone at work knows that you're a hockey fan through maybe a Secret Santa, or from maybe even a family member. And if you don't feel comfortable because it's a family member who bought you something you didn't like, but is there a gift that you've received that you politely took in but have never used and just thought, shit?
Honestly,
Dave.
I've got multiples of the same gift.
I wonder if it's the same thing that I got too, but yeah, go ahead.
So I think one of you might have bought me one. The wee Frozen game. The Frozen ice hockey game. So I got one of them from, I think, one of the guys on our show, obviously. And I also got one from a family member. So obviously one went unused. So I used one and the other one didn't go used. Other than that, I think a lot of my friends friends and family are maybe reluctant to buy me hockey related stuff because, you know, as I gesture towards all my jerseys, you know, it can be a bit daunting whenever you're given a fanatic like myself something that they're fanatical about. So I think they've sort of dodged it. My granny got me a great one though. The like a hockey mug, just a cross sticks. I think it's like keep calm and play hockey, you know, which I love.
John, you?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Dave. I think everyone who knows I'm a hockey fan, like, either considers staying away from hockey or will, like, clarify a gift with me first. The one that I can think of offhand is behind me that wasn't considered and was actually a brilliant present. I don't have a bad one to give you. But my wife got me this book, Fabric of the Game, and it's amazing. It goes through sort of the history of team identities, jerseys, and sort of why they are the way that they are. And this is absolutely fantastic. I love this. Like, I'll occasionally just pick it up and read through the history of a franchise and sort of why the jersey is the way it is. And like, it's fantastic. There's a reason we talk about jerseys so much on this show. It's because we love them, and this was a fantastic jersey themed present to get. It was brilliant. But yeah, generally speaking, family are either worried or consider too much what they're going to get, and I don't generally end up with a bad hockey present.
If you
What
are,
about you?
Yeah, I think I would probably go with what Dave said. I have, over the years, I've had multiple variations of like air hockey type, little mini air hockey type thing games. I think I've received maybe like 3 of them in the course of 3 different years, and I think people were like, "Oh, I'll just get that as like a little stocking for or whatever it is." But yeah, they just kind of go unused and then end up getting sent to the charity shop at the end of Christmas and stuff. Sorry for anybody who bought me one, but yeah, let's be honest, that's where it goes. So yeah, I have received that, but it's funny you guys are mentioning, because yeah, there's probably more meaningful and nice gifts hockey related that I have received over the years. That actually that means more whenever you do get a nice gift. And actually, one of them, I can't turn my camera. It's over on the wall. I probably could turn my camera. No, it's messy, but I don't want to turn my camera around to the messy side. But there's a gift. It wasn't a Christmas gift, but actually, like, I think I've got gifts for different things. But I know, John, you got me a gift when you were away in Canada. You were in Canada once. I don't know if you remember that, but when you were in Canada, I think you brought home. I think it was Canada. I think you brought home was a print of like an old fashioned skate, and it had the breakdown of like the. Oh no,
those were Secret Santa. Those were Secret Santas.
Okay, it was a Secret Santa. It was fun. I have it on my wall. I love it. It's one of the prints that's on the wall in this room, and people always comment on it whenever when they stay in this room, because it's like our spare room. People stay in it, and they always comment on that print. It's really nice.
I think there was 3, because I think you got the skate one, somebody got a stick, and did someone get a puck?
Yeah, I think
it was like blueprint drawings of it all.
Yeah, they're really cool. But I really like it. It's one of my favorite ones. And obviously, you boys have both bought me. For being on your weddings and stuff. You both boys have bought me hockey jerseys. I know Davey bought me a Toronto one, and John, you got me a Kevin Smith one. So yeah, they're 2 gifts. But again, that's cheating, because obviously I'd get me a hockey jersey is an easy gift. But they're meaningful.
Say that.
And what they're easy.
Say
it's
that.
Not an easy. What do you mean?
Sometimes you're always a bit wary about buying. Well, I'm definitely a bit wary about buying jerseys for people, because you never know exactly what is in the bowels of their cupboards. Because I don't like buying new jerseys. I like to buy something
that is
bit
true.
older, and you don't know whether you're. Because I think I got you a. Name escapes me. One of the armor jerseys, you know the.
Yes.
Like, I think I got you one of them, a game worn.
Yeah.
And you're like, has he got it? Has he got that season? I don't know. You know, so
no, and it's on the wall over here as well. It's up hanging up. Yeah.
It's worth maybe just throwing this one up from the comments as well. Mike has thrown this one. He says the best gift that his wife got was last week. The team did a skate with the players after the match, and she was allowed on the ice in her wheelchair, pushed around by some of the players. Absolutely priceless gift. So yeah, love to see that sort of stuff.
And that's a great way to sign off on this part of the podcast and sign off the podcast for this year.
Can I throw one thing? Can I throw one
yes,
AOB in just quickly? I'm going to be really, really quick. It's just happened. GB under-20s are playing this week in their tournament, World Championships. They've just had their third game of the week against China. It was a 4-1 win against China, with goals coming from 2 from Ben Brown, 1 from Finlay Braden, and Carter Hamill got a goal as well.
He's had a great.
They've had 2 other games. They've had a 4-1 win against the Netherlands, in which, in amongst other scores, we saw Kel Beattie and Max Stewart both get on the score sheet in that game. And they had a 4-5 overtime loss to Lithuania, so they are still in the running for a medal in the competition. They will face off against Spain on Friday, and on Sunday they will face Korea.
Just again, quickly, just before we move on from the game, was the last night before the France game where they did lose. You didn't happen to see the Michigan goal that was scored as the final. Oh my God, it was beautiful. I love that he had the audacity to do a mission goal and got it right in. Oh, it was beautiful. Anyway, that takes us to the end of this week's show and the last show of 2023. We just want to thank everyone who has found us in 2023, who has listened to our podcast, who has probably given us the highest listenership that we have ever had in the whole entire run of our podcast from I think we started in 2016. It's the highest amount of listens in 1 year. And we just want to thank everyone who has reached out this year, who has listened to us, who has subscribed, everything. We're humbled. We just thank everyone for that. And we hope to continue to put out some good quality content that you're happy with in 2024 and moving ahead. So thank you so much for that. If you do want to listen to any of our previous episodes, you can do so on our website at door14hockey.com. Check out our previous episodes on any podcast provider of choice, whatever that might be for you, or smart speakers. Just ask for the latest edition of the Door 14 Hockey podcast. Leave us a comment, whatever, subscribe, review if you can. We would really greatly appreciate that. You can get involved, send us your stories, send us your thoughts, opinions, questions on our social media channels. We're on all social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Door14 Hockey. And that's really it, I think, for this year. Boys, have a great I know I will see you, Dave, over the festive period. John, I know we'll be chatting, but have a great festive period. Keep safe, and for everybody who's listening as well, please keep safe over the coming festive period and the new year. We hope everyone gets what they want from the big man when he arrives on Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, or Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So with that, we will sign off for this week. I'm Marty.
I'm Dave.
I'm John. Merry Christmas.
Have a great week.